Chapter 1192. Lingbai followed the carriage all the way to the front of the team. Then, the carriage flew up and he also stood up, looking at the vast and dense army. Everyone's attention was focused on this almighty figure of the immortal court. Some of their eyes were filled with excitement, some of them were especially confused, not knowing who he was, and some of them were inexplicably nervous. As soon as this almighty figure appeared, everyone's expression became especially complicated. Most of the people who were summoned were forced to come. There were very few people who really wanted to follow the immortal court to destroy the true devil world. After all, after the true devil world declined, they did not have any intention to provoke the immortal world and cause trouble. Moreover, the immortal world was not afraid of the devil world. If it was just to get rid of future troubles, it was completely unnecessary. After all, the people of the true devil world had even given up on the world. What future troubles would there be to speak of? However, they had no choice but to obey the immortal court's decree. Everyone! At this moment, Lingbai shouted loudly. The entire area outside the immortal court instantly fell silent. Everyone was looking at him, and their ears pricked up. Lingbai glanced around, and seeing that everyone's eyes were on him, he nodded in satisfaction, and then said loudly, "I am Lingbai, the person in charge of annihilating the true devil world's devil cultivator this time, and also the leader of the alliance army of the immortal court and the various immortal sects. Since everyone has responded to the summons, you are the pillars of the immortal world, and Lingbai has to thank everyone for their support. Lord Ling is too polite. It is our duty to protect the immortal world. Why do you need to thank us? What's more, the devil cultivator is treacherous. Everyone has the right to kill them. If we can eradicate them, it will be a blessing for all living beings." Yes, yes, yes. That's right. The person in charge of the various immortal sects, or the sect leaders, immediately shouted in response. Their voices were especially loud, as if they were afraid that Lingbai could not hear them. If they could establish a good relationship with the immortal court, it would be of great help to the development of the sect. Lingbai nodded. She raised her hand and stopped the boiling crowd. She continued, "I can see your determination to eradicate the demonic dwellers, and I am very happy. However, as the law of the immortal world, and to protect the peace of the immortal world, my immortal court will not stand idly by. For this operation, my immortal court has sent a large number of experts and almighty experts to accompany the army. There are millions of people, and wherever they go, they will definitely succeed. Don't worry, we will definitely win this battle. After this battle, the demonic dwellers will definitely be annihilated, and will never be able to do evil again. All right." The people below immediately responded and shouted loudly. The crowd's voices were like waves, rising and falling one after another. Although the army is made up of various sects and is a miscellaneous army, I hope that everyone understands that we are all people of the immortal world. This time, we are acting for the future of the immortal world. I hope that everyone will fight shoulder to shoulder and win. Now, I announce that the shaman ceremony officially begins." Lingbai shouted. Then, he raised his hand. A beam of golden light soared into the sky and exploded. In an instant, the grand formation that was placed outside the immortal court's gate immediately emitted circles of colorful luster. Then, a large amount of strange energy rose up. Su Yun watched all of this from afar. He did not disturb them, nor did he leave immediately. The shaman ceremony lasted for nearly a day before disappearing. Amidst the heaven-shaking drums and melodious horns, the entire mighty immortal court army officially set out towards the immortal world gate. People left one after another. When Su Yun saw this scene, he turned and rushed in the direction of Xing Bai, Qin Qianlong, and the others. This time, there were no transport vehicles, so their speed was much faster. 4 hours later, they arrived at the location of Qin Qianlong and the others. At this moment, everyone had already successfully set up the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow. The terrifying and astonishing arrow was pointed at the gate. "My lord!" Seeing Su Yun flying over, everyone rushed over and shouted. "The army set out 4 hours ago. Now, remember every word I say. Don't make any mistakes, understand?" Su Yun said with a serious face. The 5 of them nodded, not daring to be careless. "First, Faceless." "Yes," Faceless whispered. Su Yun quickly took out a grayish-brown wooden board from the space bag and handed it over. There was a picture on the board, and there were a few moving light spots. After counting them, there were a total of 15. "This is a tracking treasure I specially prepared for you. The light spots on it are the targets you have to take care of. Now, 8 of them are outside the Immortal Court and 7 are inside. After the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow is fired, you will enter from the right side of the explosion of the Divine Arrow. Follow the dot on the board and cut all the way here. Leave from the left side. Someone will open the gate for you to leave. Don't worry." "Yes." Faceless growled and took the board. "Qianlong." "Yes." Qin Qianlong nodded. "After the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow is fired, you will quickly rush to the left side and support Faceless. Then, take him to the gate of the Immortal Court and retreat in the direction of the army." "Yes." "Xing Bai Kai Tian Wei Ming." "Yes." After the 3 of you fire the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow, immediately destroy the traces here. Don't leave any clues for the Immortal Court. Then, go to the gate of the Immortal Court and meet up with Qin Qianlong and Faceless. Then, we will leave together. Do you understand? Go to the gate of the Immortal Court? The 3 of them were startled. Wei Ming's face was filled with doubt. He cupped his fists towards Su Yun and said, "Master, since we are not going to enter the Immortal Court, we can just destroy the traces here and leave. Why do we have to go to the front of the Immortal Court? Isn't this superfluous? You don't understand the Immortal Court." Su Yun shook his head and said indifferently, "The methods of the Immortal Court are not something you and I can imagine. After you fire the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow, the Immortal Court will release a shockwave within half an incense stick of time. This shockwave is an energy wave that locks onto all existences around the Immortal Court. If you escape directly, you will definitely be locked on. If the Immortal Court sends a supreme expert to chase after you, how can you escape? Not to mention that you won't have enough time to escape after destroying the traces. Even if you escape after releasing the Eternal Sun Divine Arrow, there won't be enough time. Do you understand? To think that it would be like this. If you leave from the front of the Immortal Court's gate, someone will pick you up and disguise you as a disciple of the Immortal Sect. No one will suspect you, because there are still many people rushing to the Immortal Court. That is the most complicated and safest place for us. So that's how it is." When everyone heard this, they were suddenly enlightened. "Master, how did you know that the Immortal Court would release that kind of shockwave?" At this time, Qin Qianlong could not help but voice out the doubt in his heart. Su Yun shook his head and said indifferently, "There's no time to explain now, let's talk about it in the future." The fact that he knew the great exquisite technique had not spread out yet, so it was better not to say it out loud. Otherwise, these guys would definitely feel uncomfortable in their hearts. When everyone heard this, they understood the situation. They nodded and were about to split up. "Master." Just as Su Yun was about to leave, Xing Bai suddenly called out to Su Yun. Su Yun stopped and looked at him with a puzzled expression. Xing Bai pursed his lips and said, "Be careful." And Su Yun nodded. He turned and leaped, his figure suddenly disappearing. The 5 of them had already made arrangements. As long as they followed their own plans, there would not be any mistakes. What Su Yun was worried about was not them, but himself. According to the plan that he had discussed with Su Luluo before, Su Yun rushed all the way to the left. This was the place where Qin Qianlong and Faceless were going to leave later, but it was also the place where he was going to enter. Su Yun was the first to arrive, but Qin Qianlong was still halfway there. He took a deep breath, disguised himself as an ordinary Immortal Court person, and walked over. This was the management office of the Immortal Court's Resources Department. Su Yun descended to the lowest level, and at that moment, the enchantment around the door had already been closed, the door was ajar, and a figure was flashing inside. Su Yun leaned over, and the door immediately opened gently. Xiao Chua's familiar figure entered Su Yun's line of sight. "How is it?" Xiao Chua said to the person who came over. "It's about time," Su Yun said indifferently. "Quickly leave, don't get implicated. As long as the Immortal Court's envoy is dead, no one will be able to find out anything about this place. No matter what, it's better to be careful." "Yes." Xiao Chua nodded. He understood Su Yun's worries and turned around. "Xiao Chua." Just then, Su Yun called out. Xiao Chua turned her head to look at him, only to see Su Yun taking a deep breath and laughing. "Thank you." Xiao Chua was startled, then suddenly laughed softly, and in that moment it was like 100 flowers blooming. Su Yun was absent-minded for a moment, and only regained his senses after a long while. Xiao Chua did not say anything, he turned and quickly left. Su Yun closed his eyes and stood at the door, quietly waiting. At this moment, he felt his heart as calm as water, as though the universe had collapsed, the sun and moon had shattered, and he could no longer feel it. At this moment, time seemed to have stopped. Whiz! Right at this moment, a ray of light suddenly tore through the sky and dyed the entire azure sky golden. It was as if a god had descended. The entire gigantic Immortal Court seemed to have been painted with a layer of gold, and was suddenly dazzled by the light. Such a beautiful scene was unforgettable, but the more beautiful something was, the more terrifying the destruction behind it. The guards around the Immortal Court all looked over in unison. Their gazes turned from astonishment and shock to fear. What is this? Countless people had this thought in their minds. However, Su Yun suddenly opened his eyes, and looked at the source of the golden light. "Eternal Yang God Arrow. It's here," he muttered, his disguise completely disappearing, revealing a pitch-black cloak. He pulled out the spirit sword with one hand, and with the other, he pulled the hood covering his head. On his pale face, there was a pair of blood-red eyes. He stared ahead, pushed open the door, and walked in. Chapter 1193. Bang! The earth-shattering sound seemed to shatter all living things. The entire sky trembled. The white clouds in all directions, with the Immortal Court as the center, turned into smoke and disappeared. The golden light scattered across the sky, as if a miracle had descended. However, in the midst of this dazzling light, there was also a dense and terrifying aura of destruction. This aura was like a vigorous fog, pervading the entire Immortal Court. The terrifying aftermath tore apart the enchantment of the Immortal Court and shattered the seemingly unbreakable walls. A large amount of sand and stones fell, and dust filled the sky. The originally majestic Immortal Court was suddenly attacked, and a huge hole was opened up at the back. The entire Immortal Court was stunned, and had no idea what was going on. The shockwaves were still spreading outwards. Those who were standing far away were blown away by the shockwaves. This attack had blasted out the framework of the barrier at the rear of the Immortal Court. One could see the extent of the damage done. The shockwaves continued to spread outwards like the fragrance of a blooming flower. No one knew how far the shockwaves had spread. After the earth-shattering sound ended, what followed was a crazy tremble. Su Yun stepped on the pitch-black ground and moved forward. The ground kept shaking, as if it would collapse at any time. "What's going on? It seems to be coming from the north. Quick! Go and inform the Lord." Exclamations rang out incessantly. The people of the Immortal Court on this level were panicking like ants, rushing around madly, as if they couldn't find the direction. Su Yun stared at the light door at the end of this level, and his eyes suddenly turned cold. He took a step forward, and like a whirlwind, he directly rushed towards the light door. "Who? An expert sensed the existence that was flying over, and hurriedly shouted. However, he couldn't catch the person's figure at all. Before he realized it, he saw the light door flicker for a moment, and then the light gradually disappeared. Who went in? The expert who sensed the movement asked anxiously. Lord, did someone go over just now? We didn't even notice it. The people of the immortal court all revealed a blank look, and obviously, they didn't notice that someone had gone over just now. In fact, not to mention the soldiers of the immortal court, even that lord was a little doubtful. The reason why he could sense it was because of the magic treasure he had. He wasn't sure himself, but he was sensitive enough to think so. In addition to the sudden tremble, how could he not feel that something had happened? The strange movement of the light gate further confirmed his suspicions. Seal off this floor immediately. I will report to the Lord immediately. The expert bellowed and immediately left. After entering the light door, Su-Yun also went up a level, but this was the resources department area, and was only at the lower level of the immortal court. The few high-level envoys that he wanted to kill were all at the upper level of the immortal court, so he had to rush there in the shortest amount of time. The heavy blow to the north of the immortal court came from the impact of the eternal sun divine arrow. Ever since the establishment of the immortal court, there had rarely been any local wars. Usually they were the ones waging wars against other realms or forces. There were rarely any other existences that came to the immortal court to cause trouble. Many people thought that the disturbance this time was caused by a conflict between the almighty existences, or that those fellows in the research department had made a mistake in adjusting their magic treasures, causing them to go out of control. After all, there had been precedents like this before, although the effects were not as terrifying as this. However, the higher-ups would naturally not be as ignorant as the lower-up. The defensive forces of the immortal court immediately headed towards the source of the explosion, and the defensive barrier that the immortal court had prepared also began to be activated. Other than a few necessary entrances and exits, the entire immortal court was sealed. Su-Yun stared straight ahead, his speed almost reaching its limit. 5th floor. 6th floor. 7th floor. 8th floor. Passing through each floor only took less than 3 breaths of time. Because of the sudden change, most of the passageways had already been opened, and Su-Yun passed through them with ease. Finally, the 11th floor. This was an area located in the middle of the immortal court. Su-Yun stopped and looked around, looking at every room on this floor. At this moment, the 11th floor was also in chaos. Most of the people from the immortal court who were cultivating in their rooms were woken up by the explosion and ran out to ask what had happened. However, most of them immediately locked onto the uninvited guest who had appeared at the entrance of the 11th floor. Su-Yun's pitch-black cloak and the spirit sword in his hand were too dazzling, it was difficult not to notice him. "Who are you?" One of them turned around, stared at Su-Yun, and asked in a deep voice. But Su-Yun did not say anything, his gaze locked onto a door at the side, and directly walked over. Seeing that Su-Yun did not care about them, they immediately became vigilant. All of them quietly took out their magic treasure, activated their immortal chi, and carefully stared at Su-Yun. "Halt!" Seeing that Su-Yun was still walking forward, the man immediately shouted. But his words had no effect on Su-Yun. Su-Yun did not even slow down. Suddenly rushing to the 11th floor, without a doubt, this person had come prepared, and his cultivation was not ordinary. He did not know if that person could stop Su-Yun, but looking at the direction Su-Yun was heading in, he could tell that the person was looking for the minister envoy, who was in charge of this level. He clenched his teeth, and immediately moved towards the 12th floor, as though he wanted to inform the Lord above to come down and help. Since the other party was here to look for the minister envoy, he did not have good intentions. This person was definitely here to kill the minister envoy, and even this high-level minister envoy was not his match. Since that was the case, It was better to invite the experts of the upper echelons to help capture this person who had barged into the immortal court. It was just that, just as the man approached the 12th floor, a wave of immortal force floated over from behind, binding him tightly like a rope. The man's entire body trembled. He immediately turned his head, as though he wanted to see what Su Yun had done, but just as he turned his head, the scene behind him caused him to be dumbstruck, his face pale white. Looking behind him, it was already a field of blood red, the ground was filled with corpses. The people of the immortal court who were originally standing were all lying on the ground, their corpses shattered. Not a single one of them was intact. The souls that leaked out from the corpses floated in the air, wailing incessantly. At? That person's eyes widened, his lips muttered, but before he could say anything, a spirit sword wrapped in black smoke swayed in front of his eyes. Following that, his expression froze. Following that, a large amount of blood spurted out from his body. With a look, his body had already been pierced by the sword image. His entire body instantly turned into pieces. His internal organs and flesh collapsed onto the ground. Su Yun turned around and stood in front of the high-ranking minister envoy's door. The spirit sword swung a few times, and the enchantment at the door directly shattered. The door collapsed, and the scene inside entered Su Yun's line of sight. Light shot out in all directions. Most of the enchantments and formations were activated, but the roof of the house was like a starry sky, with a large amount of starlight flickering. It was extremely beautiful, and an extremely sinister-looking man with a smile on his face was sitting below. The current him was smiling at Su Yun, with a hint of ridicule in his eyes. Su Yun glanced at him, and said indifferently, "You seem to have known that I was coming?" "I didn't know at first, but when the eternal Yang god arrow suddenly attacked the immortal court, I quickly gave myself a life and discovered that the great calamity I was destined to face was approaching, so I quickly made my preparations. Just as you were taking care of those trash outside, I was already prepared. This time, you won't be able to harm me at all," the minister envoy said with a smile. From Zhan Zhuiyang's memories, Su Yun knew that he was born with a gloomy vulture's skinny body, and looked like a cunning and sinister person. It was hard to imagine that his appearance was linked to the mysterious and unfathomable Prime Minister envoy. If he did not know about it beforehand, no one would have believed it. Although Shi Buliang was the minister envoy of the immortal court, he had done many immoral things. It was said that he used to be a tall and handsome man. However, because he cultivated as the minister envoy, he secretly took a mortal's virgin body to refine. He was immoral, so he suffered retribution. His body was punished by the heavens and became like this. If he continued like this, his body would probably change even more. The immortal court originally had a clear rule that prohibited immortals from harassing the mortal realm, but as expected of a high-level minister envoy of the immortal court, even if this matter was leaked out, no one would say anything. After all, they were just mortals. How could they hold a high-level minister envoy that was extremely important to the immortal court accountable for such a few matters? In the end, Shi Bu was still a high-level minister envoy. To be able to calculate that he would have such a calamity in such a short period of time and quickly make preparations, he was indeed not easy to deal with. But today, Su Yun was completely prepared, no matter who the other party was, as long as they were on the list of targets to be eliminated, he would definitely not be lenient. "Won't it hurt you? Are you so confident in everything you have calculated?" Su Yun raised his sword and walked towards Shi Bu. "From the moment you stepped into my cultivation ground, you have already lost. Haven't you seen the situation clearly? Although I don't know who you are, that's not important. Idiot, look at your feet." Shi Bu Xing laughed. Suddenly, a large amount of purple light appeared beneath Su Yun's feet. Following that, a gigantic array formation drawn with the training grounds as a template suddenly appeared. Su Yun's current position was actually in the center of the array. Surging and bizarre energy shot out from the array formation. How could an array formation from the hands of a high-level minister envoy be an ordinary array formation? Moreover, the array formation was like a dragon or a tiger, with a myriad of postures. It was extremely exciting, and it could be seen that Shibu Shing had carefully prepared this array formation a long time ago. However, from the moment the formation appeared, Su Yun did not even look at it. His attention had always been focused on Shibu Shing, who was in front of him. The entire room was incomparably dazzling, but his attention was only on this person, seeing that Shibu Shing was stunned. Chapter 1194. Su Yun's footsteps did not stop. The energy of the formation became more and more majestic. Shibu Heo was completely confused. Why was Su Yun like this? Did he not notice what was happening beneath his feet? Or was he not afraid of his formation at all? Bastard! Shibu Heo was enraged. Do you not put me in your eyes? This is too arrogant. I will let you know how powerful I, Shibu Heo, am. With that, Shibu Heo suddenly lowered his hands and slapped them on the ground. The boundless immortal chi in his body flowed along his arms and surged towards the ground. In an instant, the entire formation's halo was activated to its strongest, and it shone with the starry sky above. The entire small cultivation ground was illuminated like the beginning of the world, and it was extremely dazzling and wondrous. Shibu Heo actually used himself as the array source and used his immortal power to inject energy into the array, forcing the array to operate more stably and quickly. It was truly extraordinary. A large amount of purple gas leaked out from the formation and directly covered Su Yun's body. The moment the purple gas touched his body, it immediately condensed into stone, as though it wanted to turn Su Yun into a statue. However, the moment the purple gas covered Su Yun's body, it immediately turned into sand and shattered, unable to completely envelop his body. What? Shibu Heo's eyes widened as he looked at this scene in disbelief. The heaven and earth 10,000 arts formation that he had meticulously prepared was actually ineffective against this guy. Who the hell was this guy? His eyes widened. Due to the lack of time, he didn't spend his energy and lifespan to calculate this guy's identity. He thought that as long as he knew in advance, he would be able to deal with this guy with his own ability. But he never imagined that this guy would be so powerful that the grand formation made with a large number of rare treasures and tens of millions of Celeste had no effect on him. It should be noted that after the grand formation was activated, any immortal who stepped onto the grand formation would be turned into a statue and be completely absorbed by the grand formation within 5 breaths of time. The statue would be converted into energy for the grand formation to continue operating. This was equivalent to his exclusive domain, a domain that no one else could touch. However, at this moment, the domain that Shibu Heo had always thought was broken by the person in front of him. He completely ignored his own domain and barged in as if there was no one around. Why was it like this? Seeing Su Yun's red eyes staring straight at him, his entire body trembled. He anxiously stood up and immediately activated his technique, as though he wanted to stop Su Yun from approaching, but just as he activated his immortal chi, a sharp sword sliced across his arms at an astonishing speed, causing his arms to break and fall to the ground, fresh blood splattering everywhere. Shibu's mind was in a daze, and he couldn't come back to his senses. He was a high-level life envoy, but his fighting ability was not strong. His own methods were useless against Su Yun. He was already flustered. He did not know what to do next. And now, Su Yun had actually cut off his arms so quickly, causing him to be at a complete loss. Shirbukwa took a few steps back and fell to the ground, moaning. Why do you want to kill me? He felt that it would be difficult for him to escape this calamity, so he gritted his teeth and asked. But just as he finished asking this question, a sharp blade pierced through his throat. Shirbukwa opened his mouth wide, and blood gushed out like a fountain. His eyes bulged out. He wanted to say something, but at this moment, he could not make a single sound. Su Yun's blood-red eyes stared at Shirbukwa. He did not have the slightest intention of explaining. With a move of his arm, the spirit sword slashed downwards, separating his body, and the raging sword chi on the sword directly sliced his body into pieces. Shirbukwa died. His soul overflowed, and Su Yun immediately took out the magic treasure that he had prepared beforehand and stored Shirbukwa's soul inside. One down, he muttered to himself, then turned around and continued to rush up. At this moment, the Immortal Court was in a mess because of the sudden explosion. The people of the Research Division had already confirmed that the attack on the north side of the Immortal Court was their missing Eternal Sun God arrow. No one would have thought that the treasure that the Immortal Court had spent countless manpower, money, energy, and intelligence to develop would actually be taken away by someone else to deal with them. This matter was sealed up almost immediately. For the sake of face, the Immortal Court naturally could not allow this matter to spread, otherwise they would definitely become the laughingstock of the immortal world. A large number of Immortal Court guards flew out of the Immortal Court, forming a huge encirclement outside. The iron walls were completely sealed, and at the very top of the Immortal Court, an incomparably huge bright red sphere rose up. This sphere was like a blazing sun, releasing a boundless red light, directly covering the entire area, and the entire sky turned bright red. This was the Immortal Court's warning magic treasure. All the people around the Immortal Court were enveloped by this bright red light. No matter who it was, they would not be able to escape the magic treasure. A middle-aged man wearing a purple cloak stood in front of the huge crack, quietly looking at everything outside. Although it was a mess outside, his expression was incomparably calm. Next to him was a man wearing fiery red armor and holding a long sword. On the other side of the man was a youth who looked to be only 11 or 12 years old. The youth had a harmless expression on his face and wore a gray linen shirt, looking very ordinary. However, how could the person standing behind the middle-aged man be judged by his appearance? Leader, the people of the Research Division just came to report that the disturbance this time was caused by the Eternal Sun God arrow. In other words, the person who stole the Eternal Sun God arrow is the one who caused this disturbance, Fire Mist Sword Immortal said respectfully to the middle-aged man in a purple cloak. The middle-aged man, who was also the leader of the military team, nodded. He looked ahead and said faintly, "Just now, I have already reported to the presiding judge, and asked him not to worry. I will handle this matter, and the presiding judge must not be alarmed. Therefore, we, the military team, need to properly handle this matter, understand?" "Yes, leader," the two replied in unison. "Send someone to find out where the Eternal Yang Divine Arrow was launched immediately. Also, send someone to investigate how the Eternal Yang Divine Arrow was transported to the vicinity of our Immortal Court. I believe no one knows the Eternal Yang Divine Arrow better than us. But now that it has appeared here without a trace, perhaps there are people in our Immortal Court who are not loyal to the Immortal Court." The team leader's voice gradually deepened. Fire Mist Sword Immortal immediately understood. He quickly cupped his fists and said, "I will send someone to investigate immediately. There is no need to rush. If there is really a spy in the Immortal Court, it will be very difficult to find them in a short period of time. Now we need to solve the matter here. I need to find out the reason why they fired the Eternal Sun God arrow. Could it be that they are trying to take our Immortal Court down a notch?" The youth beside him rubbed his chin and thought, "Did they spend so much effort just for this?" Fire Mist Sword Immortal shook his head. "They must have a purpose. What should they do then? Why did they choose today? Yes, today is not the day for the army to set off. If they are from the Devil World or the Underworld, they should choose the day of the army's sacrificial ceremony to disturb the ceremony with the Eternal Sun God arrow and delay the departure of our army to buy time for the demons. However, they did not choose the day of the sacrificial ceremony. Perhaps they are not demons. Who could it be?" Fire Mist soared immortal, and the youth could not figure it out. However, the purple-robed man kept staring ahead, as if he was thinking about something. After a while, he closed his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Although we don't know their purpose, there is one thing we know. Our immortal court has deployed most of our forces to conquer the underworld. Our experts are not as strong as before, and our strength is relatively small. If they are a secret force that is against the immortal court, it is naturally the best time for them to attack. After all, the army has set off for several days, and it will take several days for them to return. However, there are almost no forces in the myriad heavens or even the immortal world that can oppose the immortal court, be it in the open or in the dark. Therefore, the possibility of this is not high. Lord Shogu, your subordinate is here." The youth hurriedly cupped his fist. "Immediately pass down my order. Seal every level of the immortal court, and recall all the people of the immortal court nearby. Drive all unrelated people out of the court. Temporarily seal the immortal court, and summon all the ministers' envoys and high-level ministers' envoys." Hearing that, the youth's eyes lit up. Yes, if the ministers' envoys are here, no matter what the other party's conspiracy is, it will be completely exposed. Please wait for a moment, Your Excellency. Your subordinate will do it right away. After saying that, the youth turned around and ran to the lower level. Fire Mist's sword immortal secretly heaved a sigh of relief, and stood aside without saying anything. If the minister's envoys were here, then the problem would not be big. In fact, he was also very surprised today. He never thought that someone would dare to provoke him. However, since the immortal court was already here, wouldn't it be a joke if they still hid their strength? The leader of the military team was still looking ahead, and no one knew what he was thinking. The chaotic situation in the immortal court was gradually under control. The armored soldiers that were sent out had already begun to seal the entire immortal court. Those who came later to participate in the extermination of the demons were all gathered in front of the gate of the immortal court. Many of them were still confused by such a strange situation. What the hell is going on? Are we still going to stay here? I heard that the immortal court's army has already set off after the ceremony. What are we still staying here for? Let's just go back to the sect. The sect master is still behind us. Let's wait for the sect master to come and see what he will decide. Speaking of which, the immortal court is in trouble. Should we help? If we don't help, what should we do if the immortal court blames us? The immortals outside whispered to each other. Some left and some stayed. However, the people of the immortal court did not care about these immortal sections. They only acted according to the orders of their superiors. The leader of the military team believed that his decision was absolutely correct. As long as the minister's envoys arrived, they would definitely be able to get to the bottom of this matter. However, when Shogu hurriedly ran over, he did not bring him the minister's envoys who were like treasures in the immortal court. Instead, he brought him an unbelievable piece of news. "Your Excellency. This is bad. Someone has intruded into our immortal court." Shogu was practically kneeling on the ground. His face was as white as a sheet as he shouted loudly. Chapter 1195. Bing Zhu's pupils dilated, looking at the young man kneeling on the ground. His face was filled with astonishment, but very quickly, his expression returned to normal, and returned to his calm and unperturbed state. "Looks like they're smarter than I thought, m'lord. It is reported that the intruders are very powerful and have superb techniques. Although they have entered the inner area of our immortal court, they are unstoppable. Our men couldn't stop them at all, and all of them were killed. They are rushing towards the upper levels. M'lord, could their target be? Don't worry too much." The soldier leader said, "If they're here for Lord Presiding Judge, do you think we'll still be standing here talking?" Then, "My lord, why are they here?" young Shogu quickly asked. The soldier leader pondered for a moment, then said in a deep voice, "If I'm not wrong, they're probably here for the same kind of people." "The same kind of people? Leader, who's that?" "Minister Envoy," the soldier leader said solemnly. Both the Fire Mist Sword Immortal and Shogu revealed extremely shocked expressions when they heard this. Minister Envoy? Could it be? They're planning to eliminate all the minister envoys in the Immortal Court? They're actually so bold. Bold? Not really, it's just a little risky. The soldier leader's hands were still behind his back as he looked forward. His voice became cold and deep. "Even though we don't know who they are and what they're here for, they won't let us off so easily after causing such a huge commotion. If they're planning to attack us while the Immortal Court is dealing with the demon dwellers, then the situation will be very unusual. Once the two armies fight, it'll be extremely disadvantageous to them if we have the minister envoys in our hands. Only by getting rid of these minister envoys will they be able to take the initiative. Otherwise, they'll only be able to be beaten passively." "I see, then we should quickly protect the minister envoys, gather our internal forces, and eliminate those who intruded the Immortal Court," Fire Mist Sword Immortal said hurriedly. "We can only gather our internal forces. Don't touch the defensive forces outside. It would be terrible if some forces were to take advantage of the situation to attack our Immortal Court," the leader of the military team said faintly. "Also, we have confirmed that there is a traitor in our Immortal Court. Otherwise, how did these people break into our Immortal Court? This matter must be dealt with seriously and must not be tolerated." "Yes," the Fire Mist Sword Immortal and Shogu replied in unison. "Go and make the arrangements immediately." "Yes, sir." The two of them bowed, then turned around and rushed downstairs. Dong! A beam of light was produced in this enclosed space. Then, everything in this cultivation ground was torn to pieces by the destructive power contained in the beam of light. The beam of light seemed indestructible as it shot outwards, piercing through the walls of the Immortal Court, shattering the barrier outside and penetrating the buildings of the Immortal Court. The entire Immortal Court's building began to shake. Fire Mist Sword Immortal and Shogu, who were rushing down, immediately felt that something was wrong. To be able to do this, it was enough to show how powerful the people who had broken into the Immortal Court were. "Shogu, quickly gather the experts and surround the intruders on each floor. I will go and gather the envoys and bring them to the leader," the Fire Mist Sword Immortal said hurriedly. Hearing that, Shogu nodded and left directly. The Fire Mist Sword Immortal took a deep breath when he saw this. He closed his eyes and sensed the source of the trembling building. After confirming the floor, the Fire Mist Sword Immortal suddenly opened his eyes. His pupils were burning with flames. "The 14th floor!" He took a deep breath and immediately rushed towards the entrance of the next floor like a whirlwind. His current floor was the 16th floor. Every time he passed a floor, he would immediately gather everyone in the floor to defend. In less than 30 breaths' time, he had finished arranging the defense of the 15th floor. Then, he rushed towards the 14th floor alone. He held the long sword in both hands tightly. The blood-red blade emitted a scorching heat as if it was going to evaporate the door of light leading to the next floor. He moved extremely quickly and his heart was filled with battle intent. There was actually someone who dared to cause trouble in the Immortal Court. He really didn't understand what the other party was thinking. He didn't even know who these people were to have such ability and courage. No matter what, he had to go and take a look. He wanted to let the other party know, and also prove to them that the Immortal Court was not so easy to break into. However, as soon as he descended this level and entered the 14th level, a strange yet unbelievably weak and familiar energy enveloped him. The Fire Mist Sword Immortal shuddered as if he had sensed something. He abruptly raised his head, only to see a man in a pitch-black cloak and wielding a long sword walking toward him on the 14th level. The man looked at the Fire Mist Sword Immortal. behind him were countless broken corpses and wailing souls. The entire 14th floor had been cleared by him. The fire mist sword immortal's eyes widened as he looked at the person walking over. His entire body seemed to be frozen. You are the person who seized the eternal sun god Arrow. The fire mist sword immortal recognized Su Yun. Even though this guy used the hood of his cloak to cover his face, the weak aura on his body that was not concealed betrayed him. The fire mist sword immortal did not expect that this guy would actually appear here. Didn't he send Shou-gu to investigate this person's whereabouts? Could it be that Shou-gu did not complete the mission? However, this person did not seem to have any intention of conversing with the fire mist sword immortal. He continued to walk forward without stopping at all, nor did he increase his pace. Everything was the same as before, as if the fire mist sword immortal's appearance did not affect his plans at all. I didn't expect it to be you. He took a deep breath, his eyes filled with battle intent, but there was also a trace of extremely obscure fear. He opened his mouth and continued, "Although I am not your match, since you have already come here, then I have no way out. No matter how strong you are, I will definitely block you here." After saying that, he immediately took a stance and activated his immortal chi, preparing to fight at any time. Since he already understood the strength of the opponent in front of him, he would no longer be as arrogant and careless as before. The fire mist sword immortal was already prepared to fight with all his might, because he knew that his opponent would also use all his strength to attack him, because he was currently in the immortal court, in his own base camp, in front of the representative of the immortal world's authority. If he still hid his strength, he would be courting death. The fire mist sword immortal's guess was right. The current Su Yun was indeed going to go all out, without holding back. However, he had yet to activate the Devil Saint Devil Soul, because he had not reached that stage yet. He focused his eyes and stepped forward, accumulating the chi in his body with every step. The fire mist sword immortal looked at the person who was walking over, and felt an indescribable pressure enveloping his body. He wanted to resist, but felt powerless. The strength was too majestic. I never thought that this guy would not use his full strength when fighting with me. Just who is he to be so powerful? Logically speaking, such a powerful person should have quite a reputation. The fire mist sword immortal thought to himself. However, just as he was thinking, Su Yun seemed to have seen through a flaw in his defense, and with a serious expression, he suddenly attacked, and with lightning speed, he attacked the fire mist sword immortal. "Don't look down on me." The fire mist sword immortal could not laugh at this moment. In the past, when he faced his enemies, he was always relaxed and had a smile on his face, but now that he was facing such an opponent, he felt incomparably heavy. He understood that he had met his mortal enemy. However, no matter how powerful his opponent was, he had to fight with all his strength, because he had no way out. He gripped the hilt of his sword tightly with both hands, and his eyes widened as he focused on the person rushing towards him. Although he could see his opponent, he knew that it was just an illusion. The real existence was already one step ahead of him, and was approaching him. "That's it." Suddenly, the fire mist sword immortal roared, his eyes accurately capturing an afterimage, and with both hands tightly gripping the longsword, with the power to shatter the vast sky, ignited the flames of the blazing sun, and slashed towards the afterimage. A full moon was formed as the longsword wrapped in flames danced. However, this scorching hot sword slashed through thin air. What? The fire mist sword immortal's heart instantly turned cold, and his eyes trembled violently. The sword that was brimming with confidence, the most crucial sword, actually slashed air. The speed was too fast. It could not keep up with his speed at all. The fire mist sword immortal's body began to tremble, and he closed his eyes. The fighting spirit that he had previously ignited was instantly extinguished. Although it was only a single sword, He knew that he had already lost, and completely lost. He could not even keep up with his opponent's speed. How could he possibly defeat him? Not to mention restraining him? Dong! A fist came from behind, and the Fire Mist Sword Immortal's body was immediately sent flying, all the way to the end of the passageway, and crashed into the entrance to the 13th floor. He fell to the ground, spitting out blood and coughing incessantly, but to his surprise, Su Yun had used a fist, and not a sword. He raised his head, and the man in the black cloak was still standing in the distance, but he did not have any intention of killing him. If he used a sword, with his strength, it was enough to tear the Fire Mist Sword Immortal's body into pieces, and if that was the case, the Fire Mist Sword Immortal would not be able to block it. Such a good opportunity, did he purposely let it go? Don't lose your heart of the sword. A weak voice floated over, and the man in the black cloak immediately turned around, and rushed towards the entrance to the 15th floor. A streak of white light flashed past, and the person had already disappeared. The Fire Mist Sword Immortal was stunned, and he stared blankly at the direction in which the man disappeared, and did not come back to his senses for a long time. Chapter 1196. Sword Heart? The Fire Mist Sword Immortal struggled to stand up. Looking at the Fire Mist sword that had fallen on the ground not far away, he suddenly felt an unprecedented chill in his heart. His heart was bitterly disappointed. That's right. His heart had subconsciously given up on resisting when he failed to hit his target. Even the sword that was sure to hit its target had missed. It meant that he had completely failed to grasp his opponent's position. Could he still win in this case? That was what the Fire Mist Sword Immortal had thought at that time. However, he had never expected that this thought would take his life like a demon. He had even withdrawn the strength to hold his sword. For a swordsman, this was not only a matter of life and death, but also a matter that could destroy one's soul and cause one's mind to collapse. However, when the Fire Mist Sword Immortal was about to sink into oblivion, not only did this person not kill him, but he also pointed out his demon and told him not to give up on his sword heart. Why did he do that? Why did he save me? Why? The Fire Mist Sword Immortal murmured. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something. He raised his head and looked up. He saw souls trembling and crying above his head. These were the people of the Immortal Court who were cultivating on the 14th floor. Their souls were still there, and they could still be resurrected. Although their bodies were injured, at least they were still alive. This person did not completely destroy them. Didn't he come here to slaughter? On the other hand, the Fire Mist Sword Immortal had destroyed the souls of more than a dozen people by mistake. The Fire Mist Sword Immortal's face was extremely pale. His body also trembled slightly. For some reason, it was the first time he felt that the Immortal Court was so despicable at this moment, and he himself was so ridiculous. Whoosh! At this moment, the light gate leading to the 13th floor flickered a few times. Then, a large group of men and women wearing armor and robes rushed in. The person leading them was Shou-Gu. Shou-Gu saw the battered and exhausted Fire Mist Sword Immortal standing not far away. He hurriedly ran over. "Lord Fire Mist, are you all right?" Shou-Gu shouted. "I'm fine, where is he?" Shou-Gu looked around. He was well aware of the Fire Mist Sword Immortal's strength, and everyone present also understood his methods. No matter who the other party was, the Fire Mist Sword Immortal would definitely be able to deal with them. Even if he couldn't defeat the Peerless Almighty, he could at least delay the other party. There were traces of a battle here, and the Fire Mist Sword Immortal was still here. Didn't that mean that the other party had already been subdued? That person has left. At this moment, Fire Mist Sword Immortal suddenly spoke. Her words left everyone at a loss, and they all looked at the Fire Mist Sword Immortal in astonishment. Shou-Gu was even more baffled. Gone? Where did he go? To the 15th floor. Then why didn't you stop him? The Fire Mist Sword Immortal lowered his head and said, I was no match for him. I was defeated by him. After that, he left without taking my life. Even though he was ashamed, he didn't want to hide it. Hearing this, everyone was puzzled. However, the situation was urgent, and they didn't have too much time to think so much. Shogu shouted, "Since he has gone to the 15th floor, let's go and support him quickly. Lord Firemist, quickly follow me." Firemist Sword Immortal opened his mouth, and actually shook his head. He said in a low voice, "My heart of the sword is already in a mess and I'm injured. I'm afraid that I'll be a burden to you if I go. Quickly go and support him. I'll recuperate here. Once my injuries have recovered a little, I'll immediately catch up with you." Shogu looked at the Firemist Sword Immortal suspiciously. For some reason, he felt that the Firemist Sword Immortal today was extremely different. However, he couldn't say much. Without saying a word, he directly turned around and rushed toward the entrance of the 15th floor. A group of people hurriedly rushed to the 15th floor. Firemist Sword Immortal looked at their departing figures and sighed heavily. Everyone had different thoughts about what the Firemist Sword Immortal's attitude was, but one thing was clear. The person who could defeat the Firemist Sword Immortal so quickly was definitely not an ordinary person. That was what Shogu thought, but he was also extremely nervous. However, it didn't matter. Even if he couldn't defeat that person, it was enough to at least delay him. While he went to get reinforcements, he also arranged for people to immediately move the minister orders everywhere. The various departments were also mobilized. However, while he was moving, Shogu also received a shocking piece of news. The ordinary minister orders were all dead, and the high-ranking minister orders only had one left. He almost didn't dare to believe the news he had received. After all, this was only news he had received from the ordinary people of the Immortal Court, and there was no way to verify it. He also didn't believe that the other party could eliminate all the minister orders of the Immortal Court in such a short period of time. Could it be that the immortals in this building were all made of wood? Were the defenses of the Immortal Court just for show? Forget it. Shogu shook his head, took a deep breath, and quickly rushed toward the 15th floor. Rustle, 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 everyone passed through the light door and went straight to the 15th floor. However, upon entering the 15th floor, the scene in front of them immediately caused them to be dumbstruck. In the entire 15th floor, there was no longer a single complete corpse. All the people of the Immortal Court on the 15th floor had fallen to the ground. Their bodies were filled with dense sword wounds, and their blood flowed all over the ground, converging into a river. Above them floated countless souls of the Immortal Court. At the end stood a man wearing a pitch-black cloak. The man held a sword in one hand, and seemed to have sensed that these people had entered this floor. He slightly tilted his head, and a pair of blood-red eyes entered the line of sight of Shogu and the others. These people immediately trembled. This person, was he Shogu? Su-yun slightly turned his body, looking at the young man and the men and women behind him. In fact, in this operation, although Su-yun had used all his strength, he did not kill them. After obtaining Zhan Zhuoyang's memories, he was able to distinguish who deserved to die in the Immortal Court, and who did not need to be killed. Although the Fire Mist Sword Immortal worked for the Immortal Court, he had always been open and aboveboard, and had helped many desperate immortals. Su-yun did not want to kill such a person, and would not kill him. He was a member of the True Devil sect, but in the end, he was not a devil cultivator. He understood that his mission was not to kill blindly, and if he could stop killing, why would he be stubborn? Furthermore, killing might not save him a lot of trouble. Relying on his memories, Su-yun had an impression of most of the people here. He took a deep breath, ignored them, and continued to head towards the 16th floor. The 16th floor was the place where the eternal Yang God arrow had the most severe opening. It was directly pierced through, and a large number of the Immortal Court's troops were stationed outside. All of the envoys of the Immortal Court had already been killed, and the last envoy had probably already gotten wind of it. Furthermore, the damage to the 16th floor was so severe, Su Yun could not guarantee that he was still on the 16th floor, and that he would escape to the 17th floor or even higher to take refuge. There wasn't much time left. Su Yun rushed towards the light door, and his entire person instantly disappeared into it. Chase! Shogu bellowed, and everyone followed suit. Su Yun's gaze flickered for a moment, and then he appeared in front of the 16th floor. However, this floor was not like the previous few floors. It was extremely quiet, there was no one in the corridors, and the doors of the training grounds on both sides were open, the enchantment was closed, and there was no one inside. The middle part was completely damaged, and the scene outside could be seen clearly, and at the side of the damaged floor stood a middle-aged man wearing a purple cloak. The man had his hands behind his back, and was looking at the scene outside, and beside him stood a stooped old man holding a staff. Seeing that Su Yun had appeared at the entrance, the old man turned his gaze and looked at Su Yun, releasing waves of strange laughter. "You really came." The old man chuckled, as if he was mocking him. "Lord Tianji, since you are the envoy, you should know that my goal is you." Su Yun glanced at the old man, then looked at the middle-aged man, and walked straight towards him. "Not only do I know that your goal is me, I have also calculated that you will definitely fail this time." The old man laughed. "This is the arrangement of fate." With that, the old man took half a step back and retreated behind the purple-robed man. "The arrangement of fate?" Su Yun's eyes flickered with a red light. "If fate is like this, then why are we still fighting? If fate cannot be changed, why should we fight with everything we have? Why not just sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor? I believe in fate, but I don't believe in fate." "Well said." Just as Su Yun finished speaking, the middle-aged man suddenly spoke. He slowly turned around and looked at Su Yun. Under the purple cloak was a resolute and solemn face, especially his eyes, which were actually suffused with a purple light. Life can be trusted because life is one's own, but fate cannot be trusted. In fact, the fate that these fate envoys see is not completely correct. The fate that they give can only be used as a benchmark and reference, but most of them can still be trusted. Young man, I do not know who you are, but since you have come to the Immortal Court and committed such a crime, as a member of the Immortal Court, I have the right to kill you. Are you prepared to receive the punishment of the Immortal Court's laws? You want to punish me? Su Yun did not stop. He stared at the middle-aged man and said. The middle-aged man frowned. Su Yun suddenly said, "Then why didn't you kill yourself for the crimes that you committed behind my back, Master?" With that said, a look of astonishment flashed past the middle-aged man's eyes. He never thought that Su Yun would actually recognize him. In the past, he rarely showed his face. Even many people in the Immortal Court did not know his identity and face, but this guy knew him without a doubt. Could it be that this person had worked together in the Immortal Court before? Walala, just then, the void gate flashed, and Shogu and the rest rushed over, blocking Su Yun's path of retreat. The current Su Yun could not advance, nor could he retreat. However, he was not nervous because he was already prepared to deal with this last struggle. Chapter 1197. In the name of the Immortal Court, the leader of the military group established the military group to control the balance of the world and to do things that were fair. However, although he looked like he was doing well on the surface, giving people the feeling that he was a righteous person, in reality, he was a person who would do anything to achieve his goal. Zhang Zhuiyang had cooperated with him several times before, and when he had planned to establish the military group, he had used Zhang Zhuiyang's relationship with the Minister of Revenue. After establishing the military group, he had used all sorts of methods to erase the important people in the Immortal Court and replace them with people from the military group. His goal was to grasp more connections in the Immortal Court, to hold more power, and to obtain more resources, so that he could cultivate better. The purpose of the establishment of the military group was to maintain balance in the world, but the military group's principle was not to give up until they achieved their goal, and they would use any means necessary. Thus, the impression that the military group gave the people of the immortal court was mysterious and fearful. Su Yun stared at the balance. Although he knew that he would meet some difficult opponents, he never thought that the one he would meet this time would actually be the leader of the military group. With this person here, it would not be easy to get rid of the last high-level life envoy behind him. Furthermore, there were a large number of immortal court experts behind him, and even more people from the immortal court were rushing over. There was no time to lose. Time waits for no one. Su Yun swallowed his breath. His body suddenly flashed, and instantly appeared in front of the balance. He held onto the sword with one hand, the sword tip aimed at his face, and thrust it forward. The moment the sword tip collided, the sword tip released a sword intent that could swallow mountains and rivers, instantly shattering the buildings in all directions, forming a vacuum zone. This sword strike could be said to be breathtaking. Beasts Gu and the other experts of the immortal court were all dumbstruck. However, just as Su Yun's extremely sharp sword was about to strike, the vast and boundless sword intent suddenly disappeared without a trace. A strange divine power overflowed from the body of the balance. Su Yun was startled. He immediately retreated more than 10 steps. On the other hand, he was still standing at his original position, not moving at all, looking like an ancient well without any ripples. Just like that, he broke such a stunning attack? The surrounding people were even more astonished. Su Yun, on the other hand, frowned. God power? He took a deep breath and quickly swung his sword a few times. Several sword chis rushed towards the restriction, but every time they got close to the restriction, the sword chis would suddenly disappear, leaving no trace behind. It really was divine power. Could it be that he also had a powerful imperial equipment on him? In a place like the immortal world, if an imperial equipment appeared, it would be an existence that surpassed the first grade. Perhaps it was a powerful immortal treasure that was even higher grade than an imperial equipment. He still didn't know if the treasure on his body was stronger or weaker than the imperial battle robe. Su Yun stared at the balance, but did not stop attacking. If it was a treasure like the imperial battle robe, then, at the same time that he counteracted his own strength, his own immortal power would also be exhausted. In fact, this was a concept of exchanging strength with each other. Seeing that Su Yun did not have any plans to stop, the balance secretly frowned, and saw him unhurriedly taking out a slender purple sword from his sleeves. This sword was especially soft, and when it was taken out, the sword was still swaying, and there was no sword intent at all. The sword looked especially thin and brittle, but how could a sword that was chosen as a weapon by the leader of the army be an ordinary sword? His fingers gently held onto the purple soft sword, as if he was holding onto it, as if the sword could fall out of his hands at any time. The immortal court has been established for so many years, but such a thing has never happened before. Although I don't know who you are, just based on your courage to enter the immortal court, it's worth me drawing my sword for you. Come, let me see what kind of sword techniques you have. Can you make it worth it for me to make this move? The balance said in a deep voice, his voice filled with tyranny. This was the tyranny of self-confidence, the tyranny of a superior looking down on everything. He had the qualifications to say this, because he was the leader of the army, and he didn't know where that sword of his came from. But regardless of whether this sword was a divine sword or an ordinary sword, it didn't matter, because it wouldn't affect Su Yun's attack. Since you're using your divine power, then let's see whose divine power is stronger. The red light in Su Yun's eyes flickered again. He took a step forward and rushed towards the balance again. This time, his speed was even faster, and the aura of the sharp blade was even stronger. The balance still did not defend, but instead waved his arm and waved the soft sword, as if he thought that Su Yun would still not be able to break through his divine power protection, and wanted to use this collision to give Su Yun a taste of his own medicine. But, just as Su Yun was about to reach the balance, the divine power around the balance's body was activated again, and swept towards the spirit sword in Su Yun's hand. The power on the spirit sword was in danger. In that moment of life and death, an even more terrifying power suddenly surged out from Su Yun's body. The power was vigorous, aggressive, and especially sudden. It directly struck towards the divine power that was surging over. The two divine powers interweaved and converged together, and were directly cancelled out. The balance's invincible divine power protection was instantly broken by Su Yun, even though Su Yun was the same. The balance's face suddenly changed, as though he had sensed the energy released by Su Yun. He was extremely surprised, but he did not panic. The soft sword that was preparing to attack suddenly changed its sword force. In a split second, changing from attack to defense was actually so easy. Just this move alone was enough to make people admire him to the extreme. Dong! The spirit sword fiercely smashed onto the soft sword, and a ferocious sword force spread out in all directions. Shogu and the rest were forced to a corner, unable to move forward, and all the buildings around Su Yun and the balance were also smashed into smithereens by the attack. Interesting. The balance's eyes slightly congealed, a trace of indescribable fighting intent flashed past the depths of his pupils. The 5 fingers that were holding onto the spirit sword suddenly curled up, the fingertips releasing a strange power, causing the spirit sword to tremble crazily. In that moment, the purple sword struck the spirit sword in Su Yun's hand, the huge force almost causing the spirit sword to fall out of his hand. He secretly clenched his teeth, activating the divine wind sword technique. The spirit sword also trembled a bit, but this time, it released close to 10,000 attacks. The power that shook the spirit sword was immediately dispersed. The spirit sword let out a buzzing sound, and actually counterattacked. Good sword technique. In order to balance out the soft sword in his hand, the sword tip tilted to the side, using the force to retreat. At the same time, his body retreated, increasing the distance between him and Su Yun. His body spun quickly, the immortal chi around him rose crazily along with the sword intent, and then a large number of thin white threads formed around him. What is this? Su Yun frowned, but his target was not the checks and balances, but the old man standing behind the checks and balances. He took a deep breath, and suddenly, his body disappeared, and with an extremely high speed that could not be explained by common sense, he rushed towards the checks and balances. The balance's eyes erupted with a blazing heat, and he shouted, "Come at me!" In that moment, the tens of thousands of threads surrounding him directly turned into chi blades, piercing towards Su Yun. Every single chi blade formed by the threads was suffused with a golden light. They pierced through the immortal chi, straight towards Su Yun. This was an attack that could ignore immortal chi. If it was hit, it was likely that his defense would not be able to withstand it at all. However, the attack of the chi blade also required time, even if it was so fast that it was not even comparable to light. To Su Yun, it was enough. He focused his eyes, killing intent surged, the devil blood in his body boiled, and with an astonishing force, he rushed towards the envoy. The balance controlled the chi blade to kill Su Yun, and did not care about the envoy at all. At this time, Su Yun's sudden attack was completely out of everyone's expectations. In a split second, a killing intent that could cause one's soul to tremble enveloped the high-level envoy. His entire body trembled, his face pale white. His mind was still nervously watching the battle between Su Yun and the balance, but in the next moment it was completely blank. The spirit sword pierced forward like a meteor that pierced through the sky. Lord, this is bad. His target is the Prime Minister envoy. Shogu shouted anxiously from behind. However, the speed at which he shouted could not keep up with Su Yun's attack. When he finished speaking, the spirit sword had already pierced through the high-level envoy's heart, and at the same time, the immortal chi inside the spirit sword burst out, like thousands of ghost claws. It directly tore the person's body apart. Crack! His body was like a blooming flower, splitting into pieces, and even his soul was killed by Su Yun. Poochie poochie poochie. Almost at the same time, Su Yun's body was pierced through by the chi blade that followed. Although he was injured, Su Yun's act of forcefully killing was obviously a huge profit. He suddenly retreated, quickly adjusting his chi, and forced out the chi blade from his body. However, the balance on the other side stopped at this moment. A strange smile appeared on his face, and his eyes were filled with an unfathomable smile. Seeing that, Su Yun felt that something was wrong. Forcefully killing the envoy? Hee, do you think I will let you succeed so easily? What? Su Yun frowned. He looked at the pile of rotten meat, only to see that the rotten meat suddenly started to wriggle, and then all of them floated up, directly transforming into streams of blood, and smashed towards Su Yun's body. Su Yun was shocked. He anxiously activated the divine power of the Imperial Battle Robe, wanting to block the blood, but the blood actually ignored his immortal chi, divine power and magic treasure, and directly stuck to his body. Ah! Su Yun screamed in pain. His entire body fell to the ground. He anxiously held onto the spirit sword, supporting his body. He raised his dusky eyes to look at the balance, only to see that behind the balance, a stooped old man walked out. This old man, impressively, was the previous envoy. Although I've spent some time and a lot of my lifespan, I've already divined the vague details of your battle with Lord Ji Hung. You'll definitely try to kill me. That person from before is just a treasure. Brat, you've destroyed that treasure, so you've been cursed by it. Now your celestial force has been suppressed by the blood. I'd like to see how you're going to kill me, ha 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 ha. The stooped old man laughed arrogantly, and looked at Su Yun with even more ridicule in his eyes. Chapter 1198. This envoy was not simple, and when Su Yun was massacring the other envoys, he had received the news, adding that he had plenty of time. He had been peeking at fate for a longer time than the other envoys, and had seen more. He had predicted that Su Yun would directly give up on fighting with the balance, and planned to forcefully kill him, so he had set up a trap with the balance, using the Een poisonous ghost blood curse as bait to harm Su Yun. The Een poisonous ghost blood curse was a treasure of the ghost realm. It could transform into anything, and as long as someone destroyed it, the ghost blood curse would automatically add to their body, and they would not be able to resist. The balance had purposely allowed Su Yun to kill the ghost blood curse that had transformed into the envoy, so Su Yun's body was poisoned and his immortal chi was sealed. Without his immortal chi, Su Yun was only left with brute force, and wanting to contend against the balance was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Looking at Su Yun, who was already in a sorry state, the envoy laughed out loud. Shogu and the rest rushed forward and surrounded him. Humph! How dare you look down on my immortal court? This time, let's see what else you can do. Shogu snorted, then waved his hand and shouted, "Cut off his hands and feet, seal his immortal power, and take him down." "Yes, sir." The people behind shouted and immediately rushed forward. "Do you think I've lost?" Just then, Su Yun, who was gasping for breath, suddenly raised his head. On his pale white face, a pair of blood-red eyes erupted with killing intent once again. Seeing that, the balance suddenly felt that something was wrong, and his heart started to beat wildly. "Be careful!" He anxiously pushed Shogu away, holding onto the flexible sword with one hand. He slashed towards Su Yun's head. It was as though he did not plan to let Su Yun live at all. The flexible sword erupted with trillions of starlight, as though he was not brandishing a sword, but the entire Milky Way. This sudden power shattered all the buildings in all directions, and the people around him all vomited blood from the power that erupted out, making them feel extremely uncomfortable. However, the balance could not care less. Just as the flexible sword was about to reach Su Yun's neck, countless lines shot out from his body. These lines flew out from his body, and like living creatures, they revolved crazily around him. The flexible sword that was originally as fast as light, after approaching these lines, actually quickly slowed down, and when it swung towards Su Yun again, it was already ridiculously slow. It was as if it was being restrained by something. "What's going on?" Chai Zhan was shocked. After the pattern spun a few times, a strange picture flew towards Su Yun's head. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Sword. Not daring to be careless in the slightest, he let out a roar and unleashed his most powerful sword technique. 6 circles flew out from the hilt of the flexible sword and merged into the blade of the sword. At the same time, a large amount of distorted void appeared around the immortal court. The distorted void obliterated the buildings and barriers of the immortal court. The 17 floors above and 15 floors below disappeared instantly. The tens of thousands of immortal court soldiers stationed outside were also torn apart by the distorted void. The void absorbed all the power of the destroyed things and shot out beams of light towards the flexible sword. The soft sword erupted with a light more dazzling than the sun, and the light engulfed heaven and earth. His aura was so majestic that even ghosts and gods would be frightened. Crackling sounds reverberated throughout the entire immortal court, causing the surrounding soldiers to look on in horror. If it wasn't for the fact that the immortal court had astonishing materials in many parts of the immortal court, this attack would have been enough to bury the entire immortal court. "Lord Chai Zhan! Stop! We will die!" When the envoy and Shou-gu saw that Chai Zhan had actually used such a terrifying move, they were all shocked. They endured the pain and shouted at the top of their lungs. However, there was no room for Chai Zhan to stop. On the flexible sword, 6 seals appeared, and after they were formed, they directly slashed towards Su Yun's body. If this sword descended, even a god would fall. The sword fell. The entire world was silent. All living beings in the world seemed to have been ruled by this sword. However, at this critical moment, a furious roar broke the condensation and shattered the entire sky. Roar! Su Yun, who was originally wearing a pitch-black cloak and was enveloped by endless divine light, suddenly transformed into an incomparably huge monster. This monster had a goat's body, a human face, tiger teeth, human claws, and a bloody mouth that seemed to occupy its entire head. The moment it appeared, its entire body emitted an aura that directly suppressed the sword might of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation sword. Seeing this, Chai Zhan turned pale with fright. Tao Tai. The Tao Tai opened its mouth and swallowed towards Chai Zhan. That huge mouth was like a black hole, causing one's scalp to go numb and feel extreme despair. Chai Zhan trembled. Looking at the huge mouth that was swallowing him, the speed of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation sword that was slashing towards him actually slowed down. He did not know what Su Yun was. Could it be that this person was transformed from the Tao Tai? If that was the case, this sword would definitely not be able to kill the Tao Tai. Although it could heavily injure it, the Taoya's mouth was like an abyss that could never be climbed out of. It was said that the Tao Tai could devour immortals and even ancient almighty beings. As long as they were eaten into its stomach, they would never be able to come out again. If they fought recklessly, the result was very likely that the Tao Tai would be heavily injured and the balance would die. The gains did not make up for the losses. Chai Zhan secretly clenched his teeth, activated his magic treasure, and instantly disappeared. The huge mouth directly bit down, and Shou-gu, who was hiding behind Chai Zhan, as well as the high-level minister envoy and the others, were directly swallowed by the huge mouth. The huge mouth directly bit down on the 15th floor and all the surrounding buildings, tearing out a huge crack. Shou-gu and the others were directly eaten. When Chai Zhan appeared again, he was already several kilometers away. Looking at the huge body, his eyes flickered with colorful light. It's not an illusion technique, nor is it any other evil technique. This is indeed the Tao Tai. Could it be that the divine dragon clan also wants to rebel against our immortal court? Chai Zhan's expression was extremely ugly. The Tao Tai had eaten the minister envoy, and its goal was achieved. It immediately turned around and fled through the air. When the immortal court's army outside saw the sudden appearance of this huge creature, they were all shocked and confused. Some people already recognized that it was one of the legendary 4 great ancient vicious beasts, and did not dare to go forward. Stop it! Quickly stop it! Chai Zhan could not care less. If it escaped, he would not be able to explain it to his superiors. Hearing Chai Zhan's order, many people of the immortal court who did not dare to go forward could only brace themselves and rush forward. However, as soon as they got close, the Tao Tai opened its bloody mouth that was like a black hole and directly swallowed them. No matter what cultivation level they had, what magic treasures they used, or what methods they used, they were all swallowed. Even the clouds in the sky were swallowed by it. It was simply too terrifying. It was as if there was nothing in this world that could subdue it. Perhaps no one had expected that the one attacking the immortal court this time was actually such a monster. Humph! Chai Zhan frowned and clenched his fist. He turned around as if he was going to leave, and no one knew what other methods he had. However, at this moment, a rainbow pillar of light suddenly descended from the sky. This pillar of light seemed to be supporting the heavens and the earth, falling straight down to the bottom of the clouds. The entire dilapidated immortal court was illuminated by this pillar of light, and it was incomparably divine. Seeing this pillar of light, all the people of the immortal court were stunned. Chai Zhan was even more dumbfounded. Then, he hurriedly knelt down and shouted, "Chai Zhan greets the vice court head." Above the 9 heavens, an extremely majestic voice that overlapped with that of a man and a woman descended. Chai Zhan, you really disappoint me. Just a mere fake Tao Tai, and you're already in such a difficult situation? Roar! Su Yun, who had transformed into a Tao Tai, sensed that something was wrong. He looked up into the sky, only to see that the thick clouds in the sky suddenly opened up, and an incomparably huge hand of light reached towards him. The huge hand descended, and the people of the immortal court in the surroundings hurriedly dispersed. The huge hand that was completely formed from immortal energy was like the hand of a god, and it caused people's hearts to tremble. Vice court head? Not good. Su Yun's heart sank. He hurriedly turned around, no longer entangled with the people of the immortal court, and frantically ran away. The huge hand descended like a 5-fingered mountain, and it smashed towards Su Yun. Su Yun hurriedly opened his mouth, wanting to swallow it, but its mouth grew bigger and bigger, and the hand also grew bigger and bigger. No matter how big it opened its mouth, the hand was always bigger than it, and it was impossible to swallow it. Seeing that the situation was not good, Su Yun immediately tilted his huge head to the side, and bit off a few of the huge hand's fingers. Sinner, although you have the soul of a Tao Tai, you are not a real Tao Tai. Do you think you can still be so arrogant in front of me? The overlapping voice of the man and woman floated over again, and then the clouds in the sky dispersed, and in the clear sky, countless huge hands descended. With so many hands, and every one of them was extremely powerful, even if the real Tao Tai was here, he would not be able to swallow such a huge force. Su Yun could not resist, and in an instant, he was surrounded by these countless huge hands. Why haven't you surrendered yet? The voice exploded again, but this time, it was mixed with a wave of mental power. Su Yun only felt that his soul was in a trance, and he could not concentrate. The Tao Tai's soul in the 1,000 Beast Stone was forcefully separated, and returned to the 1,000 Beast Stone, and he also returned to his human form. Su Yun, what's going on? Ling Qingyu, who was in the sword sheath, seemed to be awakened by this terrifying power, and hurriedly shouted. Su Yun secretly clenched his teeth, enduring the terrifying power that enveloped his body. He was unable to answer Ling Qingyu's words, and could only silently resist this power. Humph, the vice president has already made his move, there is no way for you to escape, obediently surrender. The balance stood in the distance, watching everything coldly. End? No. This is not over yet. Just then, Su Yun's body suddenly spewed out countless of black smoke. The devil chi soared into the sky, straight into the clouds. In an instant, the gigantic hand that enveloped his body completely disappeared, and even the rainbow-colored pillar of light in the sky weakened by a few points. A powerful devil power that shook the heaven and earth filled the air. Behind Su Yun's body, a dense devil chi spewed out, directly transforming into a powerful devil shadow that supported the heaven and earth. His eyes were blood-red, and he slowly straightened his curled-up body. The spirit sword in his hand had also become incomparably black. The high and mighty vice president could no longer keep him in check. Peak of spirit god realm. The overlapping voices of men and women floated over, revealing a little surprise. This was the power of the devil saint devil soul. Chapter 1199. In this moment of life and death, Su Yun did not hesitate to activate the power of the devil saint devil soul. Since the vice president of the immortal court had already appeared, the situation had changed. The situation had already exceeded the plan, and if he still followed the original plan, he would only die. Now that Qin Qianlong, Faceless and the others had gathered in front of the immortal court, he only needed to retreat. They were not impulsive people, and understood the current situation. Su Yun took a deep breath, and activated all the strength and devil might in his body, contending against the existence above the 9 heavens. Although he had already activated the power of the devil saint devil soul, what was surprising was that in terms of power, he did not have the upper hand at all. It was enough to show that the vice president of the immortal court also possessed the strength of a peak spirit god. If the vice president of the immortal court had such a terrifying cultivation, then who was the president? Just then, a large number of multicolored figures shot out from the huge building of the immortal court. These rays of light were like rainbows that pierced through the sun, flying out from the building and landing not far away from Su Yun. When the light dissipated, figures dressed in luxurious clothes appeared in Su Yun's line of sight. Some of these existences were humans, some were beasts, all of them had strange appearances and were dressed strangely. After they appeared, Su Yun realized that he could not feel the slightest bit of strength from their bodies. Even the peak spirit god found it difficult to see through the existence of this group of people. It was enough to show that these fellows were definitely not ordinary people. These were all the trump cards of the immortal court, famous experts. In front of these people, the leader of the military group did not dare to be too presumptuous. Seeing so many experts appear, he heaved a sigh of relief. He immediately retreated to the side and began to meditate. The vice president was alarmed. The experts of the immortal court had all come out, and with so many existences, Su Yun was definitely not able to contend against them. The current him, wanting to escape, was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, let alone fighting with the vice president. Although this is the peak strength that you obtained with the help of external forces, it is still able to display an extremely eye-catching strength. Demon Cultivator, obediently surrender. If you are willing to surrender, I can guarantee that I won't kill you. What do you think? At this time, the overlapping voices of men and women came out again. Surrender? From start to finish, Su Yun had never considered this question. Su Yun, your current situation is very dangerous. The people here are all existences above the spirit god realm. Ling Qingyu's voice came out from the sword sheath. The current situation was extremely serious to Su Yun. Your immortal court has already decided to annihilate the demonic dwellers, leaving no way for them to survive. In that case, why do you still want me to surrender? Su Yun gritted his teeth and shouted. Demonic humans have committed heinous crimes, they are the root of all evil. Getting rid of them is for the sake of all living beings in the world. The sound of a man and a woman overlapping each other could be heard again. The people of the true devil realm are in a state of disunity. Although the devil cultivator did not do anything good to benefit the common people, they did not deliberately harass other realms or do anything evil. The devil cultivator did not think of attacking the immortal world to take revenge for what happened in the past, they only wanted to focus on cultivation and seek the great Tao. However, the immortal court made a big fuss over some small matters and wanted to exterminate the devil cultivator. If it wasn't for the immortal court, why would we do this to the immortal court? Su Yun shouted angrily. Are you implying that my immortal court is the culprit? The overlapping voices of the man and woman revealed a dissatisfied tone. The merits and demerits of the immortal court are not something that I can say for myself. I admit that the immortal court has indeed contributed greatly to the order of the immortal court and even the myriad realms over the years, but I also want to ask, as a member of the immortal court, have you really not used your power for personal gain? Did he really not kill the innocent? Did he really not bully others? Did he really not do anything that went against the heavens for his own selfish desires? If you want to say that the demons are evil, then I dare to ask everyone in the immortal court, what are you? A true law enforcer must first respect the law. This is something that even mortals understand. After obtaining the memories of Zhan Zhuiyang, the Minister of Revenue, Su Yun learned a lot of secrets about the immortal court. This also gave him a new understanding of the organization that represented the laws of the immortal court on the surface. The immortal's understanding was not wrong. The immortal court had indeed done a lot of things to maintain the order of the immortal world, but maintaining the peace of the immortal world was not for the sake of the justice and law that the immortal court had proclaimed. Their original intention was only for their own benefit, in order to better rule the immortal world and the myriad realms. When no one in the world could resist them, they would slowly exploit all those who were ruled. Ever since the immortal court was recognized by the myriad sects of the immortal world, the myriad sects began to pay tribute to the immortal court on time and in quantity every 5 years. At first, people could still accept it, but after thousands of years, the tribute every month had become a huge sum of money, and the little immortal sect could no longer afford it, so you annexed them, or they merged on their own, and those who refused to pay tribute, you recognized them as heretics, and either eradicated them or scattered their wealth and sections. This was only the request of the immortal court on the surface. Secretly, you also know how many benefits the lords of the various clans and classes had obtained from it? The immortal court is powerful, but no immortal sect dares to offend them. Can't you see the exploitation they have suffered? I don't know if the immortal court is the law enforcer of the immortal world, or if it is the ruler of the immortal world, but what I understand is that it is impossible for you to trample on everyone with your bullying. There will be people who will stand up and resist. Su Yun shouted in a deep voice, every word was sonorous, causing people's blood to boil. However, there was silence around him. The experts of the immortal court stood silently at the side, no one's expression changed, as though they did not care about Su Yun's words at all. Actually, with their strength, even if they had any strange thoughts, they would not show it on their faces. So, you plan to resist my immortal court? At this moment, the overlapping voices of men and women came out again. Previously, I was protecting myself, but now I can only choose to resist. Su Yun said indifferently. Very good, your courage is commendable. However, you need to have a prerequisite to say such words. The voice paused for a moment. It is sufficient strength. As the voice fell, the thick clouds above opened up again, and billions of light swords descended from the sky, straight towards Su Yun. Limitless sword arts. How could Su Yun dare to hold back in the slightest? With a roar, the devil chi around his body erupted, and the devil chi that rushed out of his body transformed into many pitch-black sharp blades that flew towards the sky. The sharp blades were endless, and as long as his body still had devil chi, the devil blades would not stop. Although the size of the sharp blades were not as big as the huge sword of light, the sharp blades were nimble, as though they were alive. They dodged the sword's edge and attacked the sword's body. Although their auras were not as strong as the opponent's, their power was extremely strong, and they actually broke the huge sword of light that was the first to strike. Looks like this guy has some skills. To be able to withstand the vice president's attack, how can he be weak? Coming to the immortal court to cause trouble, you can't do it without some ability, but I really don't know when such a powerful fellow appeared in the true devil realm. It seems like the true devil realm is just a bunch of trash, right? It seems like we don't know much about the true devil realm. Master has decided to exterminate the devil cultivator. It is indeed necessary. The experts of the immortal court who were standing at the side did not make a move. Instead, they were commenting from the side as though they were watching a show. Although Su Yun had received the attack, he understood that his current situation was not conducive to battle. He secretly took a deep breath, turned around, and activated all of his strength to escape into the distance. The speed of the peak spirit god was so fast that it was unreasonably fast. In less than a thought, he was already 10,000 miles away, and had directly rushed out of the immortal court's territory. Go. In the end, you are still afraid of my immortal court. The man and woman's overlapping voices released waves of disdain. Following that, the immortal court released a bright light. The blooming light actually spread in the sky, directly shooting towards the direction Su Yun left. Seeing that, the experts of the immortal court also chased after him. At this time, it would not be easy for Su Yun to leave. Su Yun sped along the way. Although he had activated the power of the Devil Saint Devil Soul, he did not have the slightest advantage. In terms of treasures, the things he had could not compare to the rich and powerful immortal court. Other than escaping, he had no other choice. Furthermore, all of the envoys had been killed, and the threat of the immortal seeking sect had been eliminated, so there was no need to tangle with the people of the immortal court. Su Yun, be careful behind you. Just then, from inside the sword sheath, Ling Qingyu's exclamation suddenly came out. Su Yun's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head to look behind him, only to see a huge rainbow-colored annual ring flying towards him fiercely. Bang! Su Yun was caught off guard and was directly struck by it. After the devil chi was struck, it instantly dimmed, and he landed on the ground not far away. The imperial battle robe on his body was unable to protect him from such an attack. This was an attack that was completely formed from the accumulation of divine power. The immortal chi could not withstand it at all. Cough, cough. Su Yun coughed violently a few times, and immediately stood up. Black blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the light in the sky. Suddenly, in the sky, a gigantic golden eye appeared from the thick clouds, staring straight at Su Yun. Su Yun felt as if his soul had been seen through, and an extremely powerful mental force was attacking him. Spirit technique? So shocking! Su Yun had never felt such a terrifying mental power before. He anxiously closed his eyes, and with a stomp of his feet, he ran backwards. However, the current escape seemed to be too weak and powerless. It's useless for you to be like this. His speed seems to be even faster than yours in this state. Ling Qingyu's voice came out again. I know. Su Yun said in a deep voice. So, there is only one way to get rid of these immortal court people. What method? Ling Qingyu was slightly startled. Spatial teleportation, Su Yun said solemnly. Chapter 1200. Spatial teleportation? Was there a rare spatial jump river in the immortal world? Ling Qingyu immediately reacted. That's right, Su Yun's current speed was ridiculously fast. If he knew the exact location of the nearby spatial jump river, it would not be difficult to rush over. The spatial jump river would randomly send any existence that fell into it to various parts of the immortal world. If Su Yun jumped into it, no one would know where he would be sent to. This was indeed the only way to escape at the moment. As Su Yun ran, he activated the devil chi and condensed it into a demon sword, thrusting it into the air. He was like a spring that would never dry up, crazily shooting out devil chi swords. Every single one of them could kill the spirit sage. They were extremely powerful. Countless devil swords attacked the sky, directly dyeing the sky black. However, the supreme expert in the sky was not an ordinary person either. The golden eyes suddenly flickered, and then a ray of light fiercely shot towards Su Yun. The opponent had strengthened his mental attack. Was he trying to force his mind to collapse and submit? Su Yun clenched his teeth, the blood light in his eyes erupted. He looked towards the golden eyes without fear, and a ferocious mental wave was transmitted straight towards the golden eyes. Yin-Yang Manifestation Art. How terrifying was the Yin-Yang Manifestation Art displayed with the strength of a peak spirit god. This was the time for the battle. The two of them were fighting with their mental power. Su Yun felt his nerves were in pain, his mind was in a trance, and there were signs of him fainting at any time, and this was because his cultivation was dense. If it was any other existence that had just entered the spirit god realm, they would have already collapsed and gone crazy. However, he believed that the vice president was not feeling well either. Within the huge golden eye, the pupils had already become a little slack, and the power released from his eyes had also become a little weak. It was obvious that he could not ignore Su Yun's attack. However, Su Yun could not hold on for long, while he could still easily hold on for a long period of time. In this kind of head-on fight, the loser would definitely be Su Yun, and even if he managed to defeat the vice president, there would still be a group of immortal court experts eyeing him covetously, and the final loser would only be him. Su Yun secretly snorted. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with a strange light. Great, exquisite technique. At this critical moment, he couldn't care less. This kind of mind-reading technique was extremely sensitive. King Tong actually became afraid. Sensing the magic of this spell, she directly closed her eyes, and the golden pupil disappeared. Although Su Yun had the fleeting shadow art and the great exquisite technique, the opponent had not appeared for a long time, causing him to have no way to make a move. If it was an attack, he could only lock onto the opponent's chi flow and was unable to lock onto the opponent's pupils. The golden pupil disappeared, and Su Yun did not dare to continue fighting. He turned around and ran. But just as he was flying, the thick clouds in front of him suddenly squirmed. Following that, a large number of astral stones appeared in the clouds. These astral stones condensed together, forming a huge mountain, continuously blocking Su Yun's path. Su Yun bellowed, activating the limitless sword arts. The devil chi transformed into 10,000 demon swords, splitting mountains and rocks, but the number of divine spirit stones did not decrease in the slightest, and Su Yun's energy consumption increased even more. Finally, the last mountain formed from the astral stone was smashed into pieces by Su Yun. However, on the other side of the astral stone mountain, there was a completely distorted space, like the surface of a lake that had thousands of ripples. Su Yun anxiously stopped his body. He gathered a burst of devil chi and threw it towards the distorted area. The devil chi was like a meteor that crashed into it, but the moment it touched it, it disappeared into thin air. Spatial magic! Su Yun's eyes tensed up. The use of the astral stone was not to stop Su Yun from advancing, but to delay his steps so that the vice president could use spatial magic to completely seal off Su Yun's path. This vice president is indeed resourceful. Immortal power, God power, 5 elements technique, void divine technique. He simply doesn't know anything. Su Yun, it seems like it will be very difficult for you to leave this time. Ling Qingyu's voice came out again. If the other party was proficient in spatial magic, then just relying on the spatial jump river would be difficult to escape. Su Yun frowned. Qingyu, I will think of a way to throw the sword sheath out, and then run in the opposite direction. You take Qing'er and leave first, understand? You idiot, what nonsense are you saying? Are you going to abandon me and Qing'er? Ling Qingyu said anxiously. She had known Su Yun for so long, so she naturally understood what Su Yun was thinking. If the spatial jump river was of no use, then Su Yun really had nowhere to escape to. He could not escape to the immortal seeking sect, and the gate to the immortal realm was also controlled by the immortal court. The entire immortal realm seemed to belong to the immortal court, so where could he go? Qingyu, don't be willful. Although your cultivation is not high, but during this period of time, you have studied the immortal realm, and your understanding of the immortal court is not any less than mine. You should understand who I am facing this time. It is extremely possible that I will not be able to survive. Su Yun suddenly bit his lips, blood flowing out of his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly. Su Yun, you can't give up just like that. Don't be afraid, we won't lose, they can't kill us. Ling Qingyu immediately said. Qingyu, you don't have to comfort me. I, Su Yun, am not afraid of death, but I am afraid of your deaths. Qingyu, I beg you, take the sword sheath, take Qing'er and leave this place. No matter what, Qing'er must be safe and sound, and you must also be safe and sound. Su Yun muttered softly, then suddenly raised his head, leaped up, and flew straight into the clouds. He was like a divine dragon that broke through the heavens. The thick clouds in the sky were all dispersed, like a black sword beam piercing through the sky. Su Yun! Ling Qingyu screamed at the top of her lungs. She wanted to stop him, but Su Yun seemed to have already made a decision. He held onto the spirit sword with one hand, and frantically spun his body. The spirit sword's body was like a spear that was filled with holes. The immortal qi raged crazily, accompanied by the endless and furious immortal qi. It tore apart the heaven and earth, engulfed the immortal realm, and endless destruction filled the entire place. Be careful! When the experts of the immortal court saw that Su Yun had actually released such a terrifying attack, they all retreated and used their techniques to protect themselves. The light in the sky also dimmed down at that moment. Su Yun took the opportunity, and quietly condensed the limitless sword sheath into a ray of sword qi, and directly shot into the distance. When the sword sheath left, it flew out of the area and entered a safe zone. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. As long as Qing'er and Qingyu were safe, he had nothing to worry about. The sword rain stopped, and the entire sky was completely cleared. All the experts of the immortal court were forced to retreat without exception, and the light in the sky also dimmed. Su Yun panted, he leaped into the sky, and when he leaped over the few thick clouds that had yet to disperse, he finally saw the existence in the sky. It was a gigantic rainbow-colored light ball. Inside the light ball, there was a blurry figure. It was unclear whether it was a man or a woman. It seemed to be naked. The golden light was extremely dazzling, but there was not the slightest bit of qi that leaked out, but a kind of divine and supreme might was controlling Su Yun. You surprised me, devil cultivator. Seeing that Su Yun was standing not far from him, the figure in the golden light released an overlapping voice of a man and a woman. You are the vice president of the immortal court? Su Yun held onto the spirit sword tightly and asked. Can you tell me your name? The voice sounded again. My surname is Yi, my name is Yi. Yi? The voice hesitated for a moment. Grandson, you are so obedient. Su Yun laughed. The figure was silent for a moment, then snorted. Such a low-level joke that only mortals can make, to actually use it on me, devil cultivator, you are indeed not ordinary. There's no need to speak anymore, since you have already chased me. I have nowhere to run. Why don't we fight to our heart's content? Su Yun placed the sword horizontally in front of his chest, activating the immortal qi. The spirit sword was enveloped by the devil qi. the sword body trembling violently. Battle intent gathered and rose. Sometimes, since he could not escape, why not face it calmly and fight with all his might? If there was no way to escape, perhaps he could exchange it for a new life. Even if he failed, at least he had done his best. There was not much in a person's life, even if it was eternal, it was no different from an instant. However, he must not leave any regrets. The swordsman had to be free and unfettered in the world. Why should he be bound by all of this? If he was bound, how could he be called a sword? Su Yun closed his eyes, a gentle breeze blew past, blowing off his hood, revealing a pale but determined face. His long hair fluttering in the wind, in his eyes there was only a dense fighting intent. The figure in the golden light quietly looked at Su Yun, and after an unknown period of time, his voice floated out. Limitless sword arts. What you are using is the famous sword technique of the sword ancestor, right? So what if I am? Su Yun said indifferently. However, the immortal court coveted the limitless sword arts and sent people to harm the sword ancestor. Although the sword ancestor did not know that it was your immortal court who did it, I do. You seem to know a lot about my immortal court. The figure in the golden light said indifferently. Just now, you used mind reading on me. If my guess is not wrong, Zhan Zuyang, who has been missing for a long time, should have been harmed by you, right? You read his memories, that's why you know so much. You're not stupid. Su Yun smiled slightly. Although he tried his best to hide a lot, the other party's eyes were sharp, and some of the details had already been captured. But fortunately, this news did not affect him much. Since that's the case, since you know so much, then I can't let you live. Devil cultivator, if you don't surrender, then accept your death. The figure in the golden light started to become serious, he bellowed, and the entire golden light directly enveloped Su Yun. Su Yun was not afraid at all, staring at his opponent's might. He faced him head-on, holding onto the sword with one hand. He activated the technique with the other. The devil chi around his body rushed into the sky. In an instant, half of the sky, one side was golden light, the other side was pitch black. In the pitch black sky, a large amount of blood-red light flashed. And then, as if it had locked onto the vice president, it fiercely smashed towards him. However, there was also something strange in the golden sky. A large number of immortals wearing golden armor flew out and rushed towards Su Yun like a magnificent army. This epic scene caused the experts of the immortal court who had rushed over to be dumbfounded. Chapter 1201. Both sides used their strength as a guide, attracting the heaven and earth Dharma idol to attack each other. This kind of attack was already unavoidable. Either he had to rely on a magic tool to defend, or he could only use his physical body to forcefully receive it. This was a head-on clash. Not only was their attack strong, it was also their defensive ability. The experts of the immortal court at the side all watched seriously. At this moment, no matter who it was, they all forgot to breathe and didn't even dare to blink. Just how strong was this person who dared to challenge the immortal court, and how far apart he was from the vice president, would be obvious after this strike. The black sharp blade and the golden army were like two torrents, each rushing towards the other. Su Yun and the golden figure did not retreat, they used their own moves, and did not stop until they died. Finally, whoosh! Su Yun and the figure in the golden light were engulfed by the opponent's moves. Su Yun was completely submerged by the thousands of soldiers and horses, and the figure in the golden light was also devoured by countless sharp blades, causing the two of them to be unable to see each other's figures clearly. The surrounding people didn't dare to make a sound as they stared at this scene. No matter who this person was, this time, to be able to exchange blows with the vice president, even if he had already died in battle, his reputation would definitely spread throughout the entire immortal world. In that instant, the destructive power released was enough to destroy the entire sky martial continent. The divine power of the imperial battle robe was instantly emptied, and Su Yun could only rely on his own immortal qi and devil qi to resist. The figure in the golden light was clearly not feeling well either. Almost every single one of these sharp blades was attacking at him at all times. The edge of the sword pierced through the golden light and firmly cut into his body. With Su Yun's current strength, the destructive power created was something that he could not ignore. At this moment, there were only two colors left in the world, one black and one gold. Other than that, there was only the destructive power and aura of destruction. The experts of the Immortal Court seemed to be unable to withstand such a dense aura of destruction. All of them couldn't help but retreat until they were nearly 10,000 miles away. The immortals in the distance all raised their heads to look at the sky. When they saw the occasional eruption of golden light and the dark, gloomy sky, they all felt a chill run down their spines. The world-destroying intent drifted over from the horizon, scaring away all the immortals within 1,000,000 kilometers. This was a battle between mighty figures. Ordinary immortals didn't even dare to approach, much less watch. After an unknown period of time, the two forces that were eroding each other suddenly exploded. In an instant, the two energies, one black and one gold, exploded and turned into a destructive wind. With this place as the center, the wind swept across the entire immortal world, blowing all the way to the edge of the immortal world. The entire immortal world was shocked. Such an earth-shattering battle would definitely spread throughout the 10,000 world. After the explosion, both sides had consumed a lot of energy, but Su Yun's consumption far exceeded the figure in the golden light. The current him was already gasping for breath, and his face was frighteningly pale. His eyes were a little dim, and the hand holding the spirit sword seemed to be a little powerless. He knew that he had already done his best. Although he was able to contend against the vice president of the Immortal Court with the amplification of the Devil Saint's devil soul, his opponent was an existence that surpassed the peak of the spirit god realm. Su Yun did not know what realm that new realm was, but he understood that it was impossible for him to defeat his opponent just by relying on the Devil Saint's devil soul. There was nowhere to run, and he was no match for him. What choice did he have? He clenched his teeth and could only choose to continue fighting. Even if it was the end of the road, he had to finish it. The spirit sword trembled and its voice was muffled. "Good fellow, you were actually able to withstand this attack of mine. You should be proud, because I used this move to wipe out countless experts. Only you are still standing in front of me. If I was only proud of this, then I wouldn't be standing here. If I really want to be proud, I should be able to defeat you. Perhaps this way I will be satisfied." Su Yun's voice was still light, but compared to the sonorous voice from before, it was a little weaker. "How laughable! You should know that in your current state, it's impossible for you to become my enemy, yet you still want to be so stubborn." The figure in the golden light seemed to be tired of wasting time with Su Yun, and the golden light that was wrapped around his body suddenly weakened. Following that, a delicate and pretty but sturdy person appeared in Su Yun's line of sight. This person had a delicate and pretty face, and his facial features were regular. He looked like a woman, but he was tall and sturdy and also looked like a strong young man. He looked extremely contradictory, and although he was not ugly at first glance, he was definitely an eyesore. Su Yun frowned, he sized up the person, and finally could not help but ask, "Are you a man or a woman?" "I'm a hermaphrodite." The vice president did not avoid the topic and said directly. His voice was still that of a man and a woman. "Hermaphrodite? We have already wasted a lot of time, we can't waste any more time. Devil cultivator, you have chosen death. According to the various crimes you have committed before, I will now represent the Immortal Court and the laws of the immortal world to punish you." With that, the vice president raised his hands, and his thick hands quickly swayed, as if he was forming some sort of hand seal. The chi in his entire body began to manically move, converging towards his palm. Su Yun was astonished. The vice president had used such a move and eaten his limitless sword arts, yet he was still able to unleash such a powerful attack. Just how much cultivation did he have? How much power did he have? Su Yun held onto the spirit's sword tightly, leaping backwards. He did not have much strength left in him as he struck with the sword. The tip of the sword fell, and a gigantic sword chi that seemed to connect the heavens and the earth formed a crescent as it flew behind the vice president. The vice president was neither fast nor slow. He retracted his left hand and moved his fingertip. A mysterious power burst out from his fingertips and struck the crescent. He shouted, "Break!" Crash! The gigantic crescent sword chi instantly disappeared. But just as the sword chi appeared, the spirit sword in Su Yun's hand flew over, and behind the spirit sword was Su Yun. His hands were not holding onto the spirit sword, but he was frantically slapping the blade of the spirit sword. He did not activate his aura, but relied on brute force to attack the spirit sword in a frenzy, as if the spirit sword was his mortal enemy. Seeing this scene, the experts of the immortal court at the side all revealed looks of surprise. Some of them had already seen through the clues, especially the vice president, who had already seen through Su Yun's intentions. Transferring strength? Interesting. He muttered as his hands suddenly moved. His palms were wide open, and the surging power that had accumulated in his palms was like a dam that had been opened, directly pouring out. However, once this power was released, it did not rush towards Su Yun. Instead, as it rushed forward, it quickly flowed, evolved, arranged, combined, and formed. Su Yun, who was still using his strength to control the sword, could not ignore this power. Looking over, his heart jumped. This power could be said to be the strongest power he had ever seen. This released power was like a world that had just been opened. On its way, this world was constantly evolving, and developing. They abandoned the useless power and left behind the essence power. The essence power was rearranged and rearranged, producing an even stronger power. After evolution, the stronger power displayed its most unique side. This was like a piece of history, a civilization. When this power approached Su Yun, although it was only for an instant, it was a world of difference from when it left the vice president's hands. This attack could no longer be dodged. After being struck by this attack, Su Yun did not know if he could survive, but since things had already come to this, there was no way out. His eyes were blood-red as he stared at the power. He could no longer suppress the restlessness in his body and threw the spirit sword out. Even if he died, his body would be destroyed, and his soul would be destroyed, it didn't matter. At the very least, he gave it his all and fought. He did not fear the high and mighty vice president. He did not insult the sword in his hand. Boom! The spirit sword was infused with power to its limit, and the trembling of the sword seemed to have stopped in the eyes of the onlookers. With a push of Su Yun's hand, the spirit sword that was flying forward instantly accelerated by 10,000 times. It had long since left the speed of light behind, smashing through the void and rushing towards the mysterious power that came from the vice president. This was the most primitive power against the highest and most supreme power. The experts of the immortal court in the distance all moved closer, their eyes wide open as they watched this scene. They were standing very close to each other, and this position was enough to injure them, but regardless of whether it was a man or a woman, they did not care. This attack might be rare in their lives, and if they could see it, they would have no regrets in their lives. Even if they lost some of their cultivation, these people would not hesitate. What an imposing manner! The vice president's eyes congealed as he stared at the incoming sword. This sword was infused with all of Su Yun's strength, and without a doubt, the sword's killing power was sufficient, but compared to his own strength, it was still lacking by a lot. This devil cultivator does have some ability, but he's too impulsive and brainless. Does he think that he can defeat me with his methods? How laughable! The vice president shook his head, as if he could already see the ending. The attacks of the two were already closing in. Su Yun was panting, his body was already trembling, as if he was relying on his willpower to support his body from falling down. Just as this historic scene was about to appear, a change suddenly occurred. The flying sword that was heading towards the vice president's attack suddenly changed direction and deviated from its original trajectory. It actually bypassed the vice president's attack and headed straight for the vice president. What? This change shocked everyone, even the vice president was shocked. Su Yun did not use his own attack to block his own attack. Could it be that he wanted to fight with his life on the line? The vice president's eyes widened. How could he have expected Su Yun to do such a bold thing? He was caught off guard. When Su Yun was attacked by the mysterious and supreme power, the vice president was also attacked by the sword edge of the sword. Chapter 1202. Dong. An earth-shattering explosion occurred. Su Yun's body was directly devoured by the power, he was completely submerged, and his appearance could no longer be seen clearly. The vice president reacted in time, but he could not dodge in time. However, when he turned around to dodge, he only avoided his vitals, and did not dodge the extremely terrifying sword. The sword pierced through his chest, and a huge rippling lotus flower formed behind his back. Lord Vice President. When the elites of the Immortal Court saw that the vice president's chest had been pierced, they immediately rushed forward. They supported the swaying vice president of the Immortal Court, their faces filled with anxiety. No one expected that this person would be able to injure the vice president of the Immortal Court. The spirit sword that had pierced through his chest flew into the distance, turning into fragments and disappearing. The air was still trembling, as if the force attached to the spirit sword had not dissipated. Cough, cough. The vice president of the Immortal Court clutched his chest and coughed a few times. He raised his eyes and looked at Su Yun, who was being engulfed by his own power, and said indifferently, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I never thought that this person would be so sinister. I was too careless." The vice president took a rainbow-colored pill from the Immortal Court expert beside him, swallowed it, and said indifferently. Everyone did not move any further, but turned to look at Su Yun in unison. At the moment, Su Yun's figure could no longer be seen. After the mysterious qi engulfed him, it immediately spread out, and in an instant it turned into a gigantic ball of qi, and the ball of qi quickly twisted, the patterns inside flickering. Sometimes it was the scenery of mountains and rivers, sometimes it was the appearance of the stars, sun, and moon. The wondrous scene was breathtaking. However, these miraculous scenes did not last for long before they quickly shattered. The interior was chaotic, and nothing could be seen clearly. All that was left was the slow destruction of the qi. The vice president was lost in thought, and a strange expression appeared on his face. This is a technique released by my divine power. Even if it is a spirit god, it would not be easy to receive it. Although this person has the power of a spirit god, it is only with the help of a magic treasure, and not his own strength. If he cannot receive this attack, he will definitely be condensed into courage by my attack. The vice president said indifferently. Although this person used a method to advance to the peak of spirit god, he himself has extraordinary strength. If we were to kill him just like that, it would be a pity. It's a pity to kill him just like that. That's why I beat his guts up and brought him back to the Immortal Court to refine him. Given his talent, his soul will definitely be able to concoct a top-notch medicinal pill for me. This can be considered as a compensation for the great loss he caused to the Immortal Court. The vice president said calmly. Vice presiding judge, we still don't know the origin of this person. Now that he has killed all the ministers of our Immortal Court, if the presiding judge were to find out about this, I'm afraid it would be hard for us to explain it to him, said Ji Liangjing, who had followed them over, cupped his fists and said, "Checks and balances. This is your fault." The vice president snorted and said in a deep voice, "Someone invaded the immortal court and killed all the minister's envoys, causing the immortal court to lose its dignity. If this matter is spread out, how can the immortal court keep its face?" Hearing this, Ji-hung immediately knelt on one knee and said in a low voice, "Please punish me, Vice President. Right now, my immortal court is exterminating the devil cultivator. When this matter is over, I will settle the score with you." The vice president looked at Su-yun again and said indifferently, "This person used two methods previously, one was the devil chi, the other was the limitless sword arts. From this, it can be seen that he is one of the devil cultivator's forces that are still hiding in the immortal world, but I never thought that this person would actually be related to the sword ancestor. The sword ancestor has been missing for many years, but there have been rumors recently that he has appeared again. However, his whereabouts are unknown, and we still do not know where he is. It is truly a waste for a god-level sword technique like the limitless sword arts to be placed on this person. Quickly send someone to capture the sword ancestor and force him to offer the limitless sword arts to the immortal court." "Yes," Ji-hung hurriedly said. Hiss hiss. Just then, the gigantic ball surrounding Su-yun suddenly released a large amount of sounds that sounded like poisonous snakes spitting out their tongues, and the primal chaos color inside gradually dimmed. Everyone turned to look at him. The Li Yuan is beginning to dissipate. It should have all been injected into that person's soul. The courage is about to be completed, the vice president said indifferently. When everyone heard this, they were suddenly enlightened. But, at this moment, a bloody light suddenly emerged from the gigantic ball. It was especially dazzling in the dark chaos. Everyone was stunned, and the vice president frowned even more. Is this also a phenomenon caused by the refinement of courage? The people beside him couldn't help but ask. However, the vice president did not make a sound. Instead, with a solemn expression, he raised his hand and signaled for everyone to retreat. Seeing this, everyone knew that a strange phenomenon might have occurred. It couldn't be that this guy didn't die after taking such a blow, right? When he attacked the vice president, he was already at the end of his tether and on the verge of collapse. It was impossible for him to have the strength to block the vice president's attack. However, the red light within the chaos grew more and more. The color of the light did not seem to be human blood, but rather the light emitted by the blood moon. With a gulp sound, the primal chaos within the ball suddenly disappeared. Following that, a large amount of blood gushed out and filled it. Seeing that, the vice president's eyes swayed, as if he had sensed something. Suddenly, his expression changed as he shouted in a low voice, "Not good, quickly dodge." When everyone heard this, they hurriedly retreated. The ball was suddenly broken by the blood, and the power within the ball was like a blooming firework, scattering in all directions. Everyone hurriedly used their magic treasures to block, but they were forced back dozens of miles by the force. When they stopped to take a look, the blood had already slowly retreated to the center, and in the center, a figure was curled up there, panting. The blood was continuously rushing into his body. This blood. It actually absorbed the power I released. The vice president noticed the clues in the blood and shouted angrily at the figure over there, "Who the hell are you?" However, Su-yun could not answer him, because at that moment, Su-yun did not know what had happened. He only felt dizzy, as if his soul had left his body, and his entire body did not have the slightest bit of strength, as if he could die at any moment. His lips were pale, and he did not even have the strength to breathe. He did not know what had just happened. Seeing that Su-yun did not say anything, the vice president secretly snorted. His body suddenly moved, and when he appeared again, he was already in front of Su-yun. "I don't believe that I can't subdue you." The vice president immediately reached out his hand and slapped towards Su-yun's head. If this palm landed, Su-yun's body would definitely explode. But, at this critical moment, a transparent sword chi suddenly flew over from afar, directly blasting towards the vice president. Whiz! The sword chi was silent, and there were almost no signs, so the vice president did not notice it at all. When his palm was pierced, he realized that something was wrong, and his expression immediately changed. For a moment, he forgot to kill Su-yun, and at the same time, Su-yun's body emitted a large amount of gray light, and when the gray light disappeared, he had already disappeared. Lord! The experts of the immortal court behind did not make a move. Everyone originally thought that it would be easy for the vice president to eliminate this ant-like existence, but the vice president was injured, which shocked them greatly. What's going on? Lord, does that person still have the strength to fight back? Ji Hung and the others rushed over, and when they saw the vice president's palm being pierced, they asked in shock. No, it wasn't done by him. The vice president stared at his palm, then looked at the empty space in front of him, and said indifferently, "It's not easy for this guy to break my defense, but this attack it's easy. I think an extremely terrifying existence should have been hiding at the side, and we didn't notice it." Extremely terrifying. Is that so true? Some of the experts of the immortal court had already reacted. When this sword chi came, I think, no one present noticed it, right? Lord did not react at all, which is enough to show that before this sword chi hit Lord, it had always been completely hidden. What kind of existence could hide from Lord's eyes and ears and launch such an attack? If the other party has such a method, what kind of cultivation would he have? Ji Hing said solemnly. As soon as he said this, everyone's heart sank. How could the experts of the immortal court not know how strong the vice president was? Even Su-yun, who had activated the Devil Saint's devil soul, was not his match. It was enough to show that the vice president's cultivation had already surpassed the peak of the profound spirit god realm, and entered a whole new realm. However, for such an existence, there was still someone who had the means to hide and injure his body. It was enough to show that the other party was even more terrifying. The vice president thought for a moment, then said indifferently, "There's no need to worry too much. If the other party really has such a method, I'm afraid it would be easy for him to kill me. I think the other party only used some kind of magic treasure. However, since the devil cultivator has already reached this stage, our immortal court should not be indifferent. The current devil cultivator is already able to threaten our immortal court. Inform them to immediately enter the first level of alert, and increase the search for the devil cultivator forces hiding in the immortal realm." First level of alert? When everyone heard this, they were all shocked. Lord Vice President, are we really going to enter the first level of alert? If that's the case, wouldn't that mean? Ji Hung hesitated, as if he had thought of something extremely terrifying. After the vice president saw this, he said solemnly, "Don't be careless. You should know that the enemies of the immortal court are not just these few devil cultivator. We have to face a lot of people. Everyone wants to kick us down from the position of ruler of the immortal world, and let them sit, and what we should do is to wipe out all of these fellows who have ulterior motives and overestimate themselves. Do you understand? When necessary, we must use any means necessary. We would rather kill wrongly than let them go." "Yes, my lord." Everyone shouted in unison. The vice president nodded, then his body moved and disappeared again. Chapter 1203. What's wrong with me? Su-yun, who was in a daze, felt that his entire body was floating. The people around him, the sounds, to him, were all faintly discernible and unreal. Where is this? Am I not dead yet? He tried his best to open his eyes, only to feel that his eyes were like two different worlds, extremely heavy, and his body was extremely weak, as though he did not even have the strength to lift a feather. At this time, a fragrant wind suddenly entered his nostrils, following his nostrils into his brain, stimulating his drowsy thoughts. Su Yun seemed to have been awakened, and all the strength in his body was used to open his eyes. Su Yun, are you all right? Just then, a familiar voice entered his ears. Qingyu? He was slightly startled. In his line of sight, a beautiful and agile lady appeared. At the moment, she was kneeling down, placing Su Yun's head on her knees. Then, she gently raised her hand and pressed it on his thick chest. Slowly closing her eyes, a gentle light seeped out from her palm and entered Su Yun's body. This soft light was like a cold body bathing in the rain under the soft and warm sunlight. It was so comfortable that it almost made people moan. Su Yun's extremely weak body also recovered a bit of strength. Ling Qingyu slowly opened her eyes, her cherry lips slightly opened. She heaved a sigh of relief, then looked at Su Yun with a reproachful look. Qingyu, you don't need to say anything. Just focus on recuperating. Ling Qingyu immediately interrupted Su Yun's words and shouted. You idiot, do you know what you were doing just now? That was equivalent to sending yourself to death. Ling Qingyu seemed to be extremely angry. She did not even give Su Yun a chance to speak. Su Yun looked at her blankly, unable to say a word. Ling Qingyu's pink cheeks were puffed up. It was extremely cute, but the reproach in her eyes became even more obvious. Su Yun knew that Ling Qingyu was angry. No matter what he said, she would not listen, so he could only give up and recuperate. Seeing that Su Yun had recovered, Ling Qingyu did not speak anymore, but her puffed-up cheeks had not disappeared. It was obvious that she had not forgiven Su Yun. Su Yun recuperated for about a day. Although his body was still very weak, he was already able to stand up. He looked around, and a stunned expression surfaced on his face. Qingyu, why am I in the sword sheath? I remember I was hit by the vice president of the Immortal Court, right? How did I escape? He turned his head and looked at Ling Qingyu, who was kneeling on the ground with a burning gaze, and asked seriously, Did you save me? Me? Ling Qingyu was startled, then immediately shook her head. How can I have the ability to save you? Don't joke around. Then how did I escape from under the noses of the vice president and the many experts of the Immortal Court? Su Yun asked. That Qing'er saved you. Ling Qingyu hesitated for a moment, then suddenly said, Qing'er? Su Yun was confused. Following Ling Qingyu's line of sight, he saw that in the sky not far away, there were a large number of sword discourse arena floating. All of them formed a circle, and in the center of the sword discourse arena, there was a huge ball of light, and in the center of the ball of light, floated a graceful and exquisite figure. It was Su Qing'er. Seeing Su Qing'er in such a state, Su Yun was dumbstruck, and was unable to regain his senses for a long time. Qing'er, what happened to her? Qing'er's divine spirit body has already been completely activated, and the current her has begun to absorb the power that is hidden deep within her body. This power is the power that she deliberately buried before reincarnating, and the water of the immortal pool has activated this power for her. Originally, according to Qing'er's plan before reincarnation, she should still need close to 1,000 years to activate this power, but because of your help, she started to absorb it ahead of time, which is why she is like this. Ling Qingyu explained. Then what is the use of these sword discourse arena? Su Yun looked at the sword discourse arena that was revolving around Su Qing'er and asked curiously. These sword discourse arena could not provide any energy for Su Qing'er. After all, the swords on the sword discourse arena were all there to seal the ominous swords. I arranged for them to form a simple seal formation, and used the energy produced by them to seal Su Qing'er's qi, so as to prevent it from leaking out and creating unnecessary trouble for us. Ling Qingyu said. Hearing that, Su Yun was shocked. You can actually control the sword discourse arena so easily? What's so strange about that? Ling Qingyu shook her head. If you stay here long enough, you can do it too. Is that so? Su Yun was in disbelief. He regained his senses and looked at Su Qing'er again. his eyes still filled with doubt, and asked, "Isn't Qing still absorbing the power left behind by her previous life and completing her reincarnation? Why did she save me?" "Su Yun, you definitely don't know how powerful Qing was in his previous life? You've seen Qing in your previous life?" Su Yun asked, puzzled. "No, but when you were in trouble, Qing seemed to have sensed it and went to save you on her own. At that time, she seemed to be extremely powerful for some reason. She should have used the power of her previous life to intimidate those experts of the immortal court. However, her power didn't seem to last long. It was just a flash in the pan. I took the opportunity to bring you into the sword sheath and left directly. Those experts of the immortal court were afraid of Qing and didn't dare to chase after us. Is that so? But why would Qing suddenly have such a change? And came to save me? This seemed very far-fetched. I can't figure that out either. Maybe you and Qing have a telepathic connection. Qing probably knew that you were in danger, which was why she had such a change. Ling Qingyu smiled slightly. You two are indeed a match made in heaven. Really? Su Yun was still a little confused, but this was the only explanation that could answer him. After thinking for a moment, he was still unable to figure it out, so he could only give up. However, Su Yun's suspicions towards Ling Qingyu grew even stronger. Although he knew that Qingyu would not harm him, Ling Qingyu was becoming more and more mysterious to him. Where are we now? Su Yun sat down cross-legged again and continued to recuperate. He felt that the blood in his body had congealed, and the speed at which it flowed had become sluggish. His entire body was extremely cold, and his internal organs, immortal meridians, and immortal eyes were all extremely weak, as though they had just undergone a baptism. We're returning to the immortal seeking sect. Ling Qingyu walked in front of Su Yun and snorted, but her words were serious. Su Yun, listen carefully. No matter what you do in the future, you are not allowed to be so impulsive. I will not allow you to abandon me again, understand? If there's anything, we'll face it together. Yes, we'll face it together. We'll definitely fight side by side in the future. Su Yun laughed bitterly. I'm not joking with you. Ling Qingyu's eyes flickered with tears, and her voice became choked with sobs. Do you know how terrifying the vice president's strength is? Do you know how powerful those experts from the immortal court are? Hermaphrodite. This kind of special physique is hard to come by in 10,000 worlds. He is used by 2 people to cultivate, and his aptitude is also top-notch. His strength is even more terrifying. Even if you have the peak spirit god, you are definitely not his match. His physique is one of the top physique. You are alone. Facing him is simply courting death. Do you know? I know, but with you, do we have a chance of winning? Su Yun laughed bitterly. Qingyu, I cannot implicate you, so no matter what, I hope that you are safe and sound, and that Qing is safe and sound. I might not be able to help you, but the sword sheath can. Ling Qingyu immediately said, Su Yun, don't look down on this sword sheath. It is not only able to help you store the divine sword, it is also not only used to seal the ominous sword. When necessary, you can even use it as a threat. Threat? Su Yun was startled. Yes, a threat. Ling Qingyu's eyes suddenly congealed, and said softly, If you encounter such a situation again, you can use the evil sword in the sword sheath to threaten those who are a threat to you, forcing them to leave. You can say, if they do not leave, you can release all the divine swords in the sword sheath, remove the seal on the evil sword, and let the evil sword destroy the world. Once the evil sword appears, the entire immortal world will no longer exist, and your threat will no longer exist. In this way, how would the other party dare to hurt you? Aren't you being reckless? Su Yun immediately shook his head and rejected. If that's the case, won't I also die? And to do this, how is that possible? Once the evil sword appears, the 10,000 worlds will no longer exist. Just for my, Su Yun's, life and let everyone die with me? Do you think I would do that? Are you an idiot? You can just threaten others. Not everyone will fall for it, and once we do that, the matter of the evil sword will be exposed. At that time, I'm afraid it will attract even more trouble. It's not appropriate. Su Yun shook his head. Hearing that, Ling Qingyu opened her cherry lips. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she gave up, sighed, and did not say anything else. Su Yun rested in the sword sheath for 2 days, then came out. Looking outside, it was impossible for the sword sheath to move by itself, but Ling Qingyu found a stone, and injected a large amount of immortal qi into it, using the stone to carry things. He rushed towards the immortal seeking sect. After the battle of the immortal court, the entire immortal world would definitely undergo earth-shattering changes, at least, the current calm on the surface, but the surging undercurrents in the immortal world would be broken. After experiencing the chaos of the immortal court, there would be even more enemies of the immortal court appearing. The immortal world would welcome a new era, an era filled with killing intent and chaos. Chapter 1204. Within a few days of the chaos in the immortal court, the news had spread throughout the entire immortal world. No one dared to believe that there was still someone who dared to cause trouble in the immortal court, and even caused a mess in the immortal court. The damage to the buildings in the immortal court exceeded 1/5. Many immortals could not believe it when they heard of this. For a time, rumors spread throughout the immortal world, guessing who did it and whether or not the thief was captured. The other party chose to make a move when the immortal court's army went to exterminate the devil cultivator. The immortal world was in an uproar, but Qin Qianlong, Xing Bai, Faceless and the others who were involved in this matter were feeling uneasy. Although they did not personally witness Su Yun fighting with the experts of the immortal court, they knew that this time, the vice president of the immortal court had already made his move. They followed the retreat route that Su Yun had previously planned and gathered in front of the immortal court. There were a large number of immortals from all over the immortal world gathered here, and they were not tainted by the devil qi. Even if the people of the immortal court wanted to investigate, they would not be able to do so, and even if they found them, they would not be able to suspect them. The few of them waited at the gate until the immortal court issued an order to expel all the other immortals from the other sections. They did not know the final outcome of the battle of the immortal court, and all the news about Su Yun had been lost. For a moment everyone was worried, but they did not know what to do. Helpless, they could only return to the immortal seeking sect. I really didn't expect that the vice president of the immortal court would appear this time. Isn't the Lord doomed this time? On the way, Xing Bai's face was pale as he spoke. What should we do now? Xiang Yang said with a trembling voice. We don't even know if the Lord is alive or dead. It's better not to make too early a conclusion. Let's go back first. Qin Qianlong said. The few of them were talking to each other, but Kai Tian kept his mouth shut. His expression was extremely ugly. Qin Qianlong noticed Kai Tian's abnormality and immediately understood why he was so worried. Heart control pill. The current Kai Tian had not been removed by Su Yun. If Su Yun died, then Kai Tian would definitely not be able to live. They did not mind. The reason why they still followed Su Yun was because Su Yun could let them display their talents better, and they were also grateful to Su Yun for treating them well. Although Su Yun had subdued them with his martial power, their losses were far less than what Su Yun had given them. In the immortal world, the strong preyed on the weak, and the world was the same. Su Yun had never treated them unfairly. If it was any other immortal, they would not have done so. Don't worry, Lord Tian. Let's return to the immortal seeking sect first and ask Miss to find out the latest news from the immortal court. If Lord Tian is really killed by the people of the immortal court, she will know about it. If there is no news from the immortal court, it means that Lord Tian has escaped. Qin Qianlong seemed to know what Kai Tian was thinking and immediately comforted him. Kai Tian's face was slightly pale. He knew that Qin Qianlong was comforting him, so he nodded and said nothing. Everyone continued forward. After an unknown amount of time, Lord Qin, there's something I'd like to say, but I don't know if I should say it. He seemed to be unable to hold it in any longer. The other four looked at him. Kai Tian hesitated for a moment and said, Everyone, if Lord really meets with an accident, what do you plan to do? With that said, everyone became silent. They lowered their heads and pondered, not saying a word for a long time. Without a doubt, although Kai Tian's words were disrespectful to Su Yun, but in the current situation, it was not impossible. If Su Yun really met with an accident, what should they do? Continue to maintain the status quo? This was probably very difficult. Although everyone was convinced by Su Yun, they might not be convinced by each other. It would be very difficult to maintain the status quo, and the final result could only be disintegration. If there was no leader, the status quo would not be maintained, and who would be the leader was a problem. Right now, Lord's life and death are unknown. It is too early for us to discuss such things. Everyone, let's go back first, Qin Qianlong said in a low voice. Hearing this, everyone nodded and moved forward. In fact, among all the immortal sects, the Hidden Dragon Hall was the most powerful, followed by the Dali Palace, the Carefree Palace, the Eight Amalgamation School, and the Immortal Seeking Sect. As for the strength of the heads of the sects, they were Qin Qianlong, Xing Bai, Wei Ming, Kai Tian, and Xiang Yang. If they had to choose a leader, it would be Qin Qianlong. The five of them felt apprehensive as they hurriedly returned to the Immortal Seeking Sect. At this moment, the entire Immortal Seeking Sect had entered a state of high alert. The sect had already been closed and there were defenses everywhere in the sect. The enchantment was completely activated and the experts were hidden everywhere. Seeing that, Qin Qianlong and the rest immediately understood that Su Luluo had already received the news from the Immortal Court, and the vice president had already moved out. She understood that the situation was serious, so she had already made preparations. Its sect leader Xiang Yang. Seeing that Xiang Yang and the rest had arrived, the Immortal Seeking Sect disciples guarding the gate immediately opened the gate and welcomed them in. Where is Miss? Upon entering the sect, Xiang Yang asked. Miss has been waiting in the discussion hall. She has told us that if you return, quickly head to the discussion hall to discuss with her. The disciple guarding the door quickly said. When Xiang Yang and the rest heard this, they immediately turned and quickly headed into the discussion hall. Outside the discussion hall, Zijin was already waiting there. At the moment, her face was pale, and when she saw the arrival of the lords, she hurriedly lowered her head, as though she did not dare to look at them. Xiang Yang and the rest ignored him and directly stepped in. At the moment, Su Luluo was already waiting in the discussion hall. She paced back and forth in the hall with a face full of anxiety. When she saw Xiang Yang and the rest entering the hall, she immediately looked left and right, and very quickly, her eyes were filled with disappointment, and she asked anxiously, Where's brother? Where's your lord Su Yun? Where is he? Where is he? Xiang Yang sighed, but did not say anything. Kai Tian and Xing Bai's faces were ugly. Faceless was wearing a mask. His expression was unknown, but he only stood at the side. Only Qin Qianlong shook his head, cupped his fists and said, Miss, we followed the plan, everything went smoothly, we ended early, and waited for Master at the designated location, but Master was surrounded by the experts of the Immortal Court, and even the vice president of the Immortal Court appeared. Master Su Yun's whereabouts are still unknown. Su Luluo's beautiful face instantly turned pale. She weakly retreated a few steps, her body staggered, her cherry lips trembled, her eyes wide open as she looked at the five of them. Big brother is surrounded by enemies. Why didn't you help? Miss, it's not that we are heartless, it's just that we are powerless. The experts of the Immortal Court have all come out. If we were to go up, I'm afraid we would be killed by the experts of the Immortal Court before we could even get close. Xingbai sighed. They knew that Su Liuluo's feelings for Su Yun were extremely deep. In fact, with Su Liuluo's wisdom, it was impossible for her not to know that the 5 of them were unable to save Su Yun, but she said it like that. It was enough to show that after knowing about Su Yun, her heart was in a mess. Everyone did not say a word. Su Luluo sat paralyzed on the ground, her hands covering her face, tears flowing out from between her fingers. An immortal's 7 emotions and 6 desires were already very light, but Su Luluo's cultivation was not high, although her temperament was not ordinary. But Su Yun's current life and death was unknown, and had already touched the forbidden zone in her heart. The pillar of support in her heart instantly collapsed, and she was completely at a loss. The atmosphere in the meeting hall was heavy. Everyone had lost their backbone and did not know what to do next. Qin Qianlong looked at Su Luluo, thought for a moment, then cupped his fists. Miss, we have just rushed back from the Immortal Court, and do not know the situation at the Immortal Court. Miss has been waiting here quietly. The Immortal Court's message should be faster than ours. May I ask, Miss, how is the situation at the Immortal Court? The Immortal Court has entered a state of alert, and has begun to investigate the hidden devil cultivator forces in the immortal world. At the same time, the Immortal Court has once again issued a summons to the entire immortal world, gathering another batch of troops to prepare to support the Immortal Court army heading to the underworld. Su Luluo muttered. Her voice was already weak, her eyes were absent-minded, as though she had lost her soul. What? Gathering another army? Everyone's face changed. What is the Immortal Court doing? Could it be that the Immortal Court army that went to the underworld has already been defeated? Wei Ming asked. No. Su Luluo shook his head. After this operation, the Immortal Court is completely enraged. They have decided to exterminate the devil cultivator at all costs, and eradicate all the enemies of the Immortal Court. They hope to use this operation to prove to all the existences that are dissatisfied with the Immortal Court that the Immortal Court is not something they can provoke, and all of their current actions are already aimed at the devil cultivator. People looked at each other in dismay, and everyone's expression was especially ugly. If that's the case, doesn't that mean our situation is not optimistic? Kai Tian's voice trembled. Everyone, don't worry too much. Su Luluo's eyes turned red, and his voice became choked with sobs. Big Brother has not returned yet, everyone. Do not take any action for now. Return to your sects. Your sects are very clean. Even if the people from the Immortal Court go to investigate, there is nothing to be afraid of. Wait for the results of the underworld to come, then we can make the next step of the plan. During this period of time, don't do anything. The atmosphere in the immortal world is already very sensitive. Su Luluo muttered. Yes, everyone cupped their fists helplessly. Qin Qianlong and the rest bade farewell to Su Luluo and were about to leave the meeting hall. Everyone was extremely confused about the future, but, just as everyone was about to leave, a figure suddenly staggered into the meeting hall. Zijin, who was outside, suddenly shouted excitedly. Little, Miss. When everyone heard this, they all turned their heads to look outside the meeting hall, only to see Zijin rushing in first, looking incoherent. Su Luluo was puzzled, but very quickly, the person who appeared behind Zijin made her understand everything. She was stunned. Chapter 1205. Seeing the figure that appeared, everyone was stunned, all of them dumbfounded as they looked at the person who staggered in. The man walked step by step to the top of the meeting hall, then sat down and took a deep breath. The meeting hall was silent, and all eyes were focused on the person sitting on the chair. Su Yun took a deep breath, then raised his head and looked at everyone. Seeing that everyone's expressions had froze, he was stunned for a moment, then asked, "What's wrong with you guys?" Only then did everyone regain their senses. Su Lulua's eyes flickered with tears, her cherry lips pursed tightly. She suddenly rushed over and threw herself into Su Yun's embrace. Su Yun was dumbstruck, looking at the girl who was sobbing in his embrace. He was stunned. Luluo, what's wrong? Su Yun hesitated for a moment, then asked. No, nothing. After a long while, Su Luluo raised his head, gently wiped the tears from the corner of his eyes and laughed. Big brother, it's good that you're fine, it's good that you're back. Su Yun was not an idiot, although he was startled for a moment. He quickly understood why Su Luluo was like that. He smiled and said, Luluo, you don't have to worry too much about me, my luck has always been good, this time I naturally escaped death. Master. The other 5 people also regained their senses. They all anxiously walked forward and cupped their fists towards Su Yun. Xiang Yang was obviously excited. His voice trembling, he was actually crying tears of joy. Master, it's great that you're safe and sound. I never thought that even the vice president of the Immortal Court would not be able to keep Master here. Master's strength is truly unparalleled, from ancient times until now. Xing Bai also sighed with emotion. How could the people present not know what kind of existence the Immortal Court was? However, they had rarely heard of the vice president of the Immortal Court, and had never seen them before because they were already equivalent to the rulers of the immortal world, the leaders of the immortal world, and were not people they could come into contact with. The immortal world was huge, and there were as many experts as there were trees in the forest. The fact that the Immortal Court was able to rule the immortal world, and they were able to rule the Immortal Court was enough to explain everything. However, such an existence, along with the countless experts of the Immortal Court with terrifying strength, was still unable to keep Su Yun here. This was truly shocking. This also made the 5 of them even more suspicious. Just how strong were Su Yun's methods? Actually, all of this was luck, and according to Ling Qingyu's words, it was really luck. If the vice president was not intimidated by Su Qing'er's methods, Su Yun would not have been able to escape the fate of being beheaded, and Qing'er and Qingyu would have been in trouble, but he was still frightened. After thinking about it, Su Yun trembled with fear. However, the vice president of the Celestial Court was too terrifying. Up until now, other than the Celestial Court immortal who could remove the condition, Su Yun, who was in the state of the Devil Saint and Devil Soul, could crush any other immortal he met. Not to mention the restraint of the immortal technique, this vice president was completely suppressing him in terms of strength. Furthermore, Su Yun was sure that he was crushing him. Su Yun would never believe that the vice president was also at the peak of the spirit profound god. Then, what realm was he at? Let me ask you, above the 10th stage of spirit profound god, is there any other realm? Su Yun raised his head, stared at everyone, and asked seriously. Above spirit god? The 5 of them were startled, but none of them could answer Su Yun, and all of them shook their heads. Naturally, it's the existence of a god. Just then, Su Luluo suddenly spoke up. Su Yun turned his head and looked at her strangely. God? Luluo is not very clear either. There are no records of this in the immortal books and secret manuals, but Luluo believes that the existences of Spirit Profound Immortal and Spirit Profound God are only called immortals. Then does the so-called God realm exist? Is it an existence that surpasses the Spirit Profound God? Su Luluo only said a very simple thought that many immortals might have had. Hearing that, Su Yun immediately understood. Actually, from the initial stage of Spirit Novice Disciple to the final Spirit Profound God, they are all just a general term for cultivation strength. These names are all given by people, aren't they? As long as a person continues to advance and cultivate, their cultivation will not stop at the peak of Spirit Profound God. You're right, it seems like I was too obsessed with the name of cultivation. Su Yun nodded his head. His originally muddle-headed thoughts became clear. Although Su Lilua's cultivation was not high, she could see things much further than Su Yun. The onlookers are confused, and the onlookers are clear. Brother is just a little confused. If you calm down and think about it carefully, you will be able to understand. Su Liulua's mood seemed to have improved a lot, and a smile actually hung on his face. Yes. Su Yun thought for a while, as though he was thinking about something, then said, I was lucky to escape, but next time, if I meet the vice president of the Immortal Court, I'm afraid I won't have such good luck again. Luluo, I just came back, so I don't know much about the current situation in the Immortal Court. After I killed the Immortal Court's envoy, did the Immortal Court make any moves? Yes. Su Luluo nodded his head. Ever since I found out about the change in the Immortal Court, Luluo has already sent 7 batches of people to investigate the movements of the Immortal Court and to pay attention to the news of Big Brother. Although I do not know about Big Brother's situation, I still know about the movements of the Immortal Court like the back of my hand. Ever since the chaos in the Immortal Court has made a few big plans. The first is to raise the Immortal Army and exterminate the Devil Cultivator. They have issued a new edict, further summoning the people of the Immortal Sect to form an Immortal Army and head to the underworld to support the Immortal Court's army. Although the number of people gathered this time is far from what it was before, there are still hundreds of thousands of them. Secondly, the Immortal Court has begun to increase its control over the Immortal World. The Immortal Court does not have that many people, so they once again set their sights on the countless immortal sects in the Immortal World. They have forcefully requested the people of the Immortal Sects to transfer 10 people to be the loyal subjects of the Immortal Court to assist them in investigating the hidden Devil Cultivator forces in the Immortal World. They have adopted the strategy of searching the south and the north, selecting the immortals from the Immortal Sects in the south and heading to the north to investigate, to ensure that the investigation is not watered down. Danger? Hearing that, Su Yun was puzzled. The ones who should be worried should be us, right? This shouldn't have any effect on the other immortal sects. If Big Brother thinks that way, then he's too naive. Su Luluo shook his head and said, Actually, there are many immortal sects in the Immortal World, and they are not as simple as we think. Some of the immortal sects, although they look righteous on the surface, have the image of a righteous sect, but in reality, they have done a lot of evil things in secret, and some of the immortal sects, in order to refine pills, cultivate immortal techniques and raise their realms, are even more unscrupulous. The demon realm, the ghost realm, and even the underworld, all have many rare treasures that the immortal world does not have, which are helpful for cultivation or concocting pills. Many of the immortal sects have sent their disciples to search for magic treasures. So many of the immortal sects in the immortal world actually have many forbidden things in their hand. If these things are found by the people of the Immortal Court, then they will definitely be identified as the Devil Cultivator forces that are hiding in the immortal world. Hearing that, Su Yun frowned. It's that serious? That's right, my lord. This subordinate has just received news that the Immortal Court has already captured a group of immortals. If there are any immortals who resist, they will immediately kill them. Right now, the Immortal Court would rather kill 1,000 innocents than let one go. Zijin, who was at the side, mustered up his courage and said, When everyone heard this, they all went into an uproar. Isn't the Immortal Court trying to cause chaos in the immortal world by doing this? Su Yun frowned again and again. There will definitely be chaos. Whether or not there will be chaos, I don't know, but one thing is certain. Big Brother, you have already made the Immortal Court uneasy. Su Luluo said. Actually, Big Brother, after you killed the Immortal Court's Prime Minister envoy, the Immortal Court also started to formulate a plan for this matter. The Prime Minister envoy is equivalent to the eyes of the Immortal Court, many things that could have been done in the dark, but because of the existence of the Prime Minister envoy, the Immortal Court also knows how important the Prime Minister envoy is to them, especially the high-level Prime Minister envoy of the Immortal court, which is even more precious. If the immortal court wants to nurture an ordinary prime minister envoy, it would take at least 7,000 years, and a high-level prime minister envoy, without more than 50,000 years, it would be impossible for them to do so. Not only would it take a lot of manpower to find suitable candidates, it would also take a lot of equipment to open up the life meridian and light up the heaven's eye. These things, ordinary immortal sects would not be able to do. Even if it was the immortal court, it would not be easy, and now that the prime minister envoy that the immortal court had accumulated for so many years had all been killed by my brother, how could they not be angry? It is only natural for them to do such a series of things against the devil cultivator. Since that's the case, we should also do something. Su Yun said indifferently. Have the people from the immortal court sent people over to us to be righteous officials? Yes, I have already arranged for a suitable candidate to go over. Has anyone come to our place to investigate? Not yet, but they should be here soon. During this period of time, immediately hide all the things related to the demon realm in the various sects. Do not make any movements. First pass this limelight, then make the next step. Other than that, I need the latest news about the underworld, the information about the immortal court's first army, the current location of the advance, the location of the immortal court's second army, and the reaction from the underworld. Su Yun said. Yes. Su Luluo nodded. The immortal court had come to an end, but this matter had also given Su Yun a new understanding of the immortal court. Maybe the war with the immortal court had already started, and from today onwards, Su Yun could no longer stay out of it. However, right now, the battle of the underworld would be a crucial battle. He wanted to understand the immortal court, and even more so, he wanted to use this battle to understand the underworld. Chapter 1206. Because of the chaos in the immortal court, the immortal world became nervous. Most of the immortal sects chose to close their sects, not going out to mine spirit mines, expand their resources, and develop their sections. They only led their disciples to focus on cultivation, concocting pills and refining. Most of the rogue immortals also hid in the immortal city and did not come out. The vast immortal world became somewhat lonely. However, closing the sect would not stop the immortal court's method. In reality, the immortal world was just as Zijin had investigated. Many people from the immortal sects used many forbidden items to cultivate and refine magic treasure pills. In order to reward them, the people from the immortal court who came to investigate would often add fuel to the fire and report it to the immortal court, causing many immortal sects to suffer from the calamity of the immortal court. Following the series of forced measures taken by the immortal court, the immortal world became chaotic. Some sects were dissatisfied with the actions of the immortal court and stood up to resist, but they were forcefully suppressed by the experts sent by the immortal court. Although many immortals submitted to the immortal court on the surface, after this incident, the immortals would definitely feel resentment in their hearts. They only dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. Su Luluo had already formulated a strategy to deal with the immortal court's investigation, so there was no need to worry about the immortal court. The minister of the immortal court had already been eliminated, and in a short period of time, the immortal court would not be able to nurture a new minister of the immortal court, so it would be much more convenient for the immortal-seeking sect to move in the future. Su Yun was not in a hurry to take any action, so he placed all of his focus on the group of immortal court soldiers that were heading towards the underworld. It was reported that when the chaos in the immortal court occurred, Lung Bai, who was leading the immortal army, ordered the army to slow down and at the same time, sent people back to the immortal court to ask if they would return to help. After that, the vice president Wu Xian came out and quelled the chaos. According to this speed, in less than a month, the battle between the immortal underworld would definitely erupt. Every day, Su Yun would send close to 100 people to investigate the movements of the immortal underworld. He did not know what methods the underworld had to defend against so many immortals, nor did he know the situation of the people of the true devil sect in the underworld. Wei Ming, Kai Tian, Qin Qianlong, and Xing Bai were all sent back by him to take care of their respective sections. The current situation in the immortal world was complicated. They could not leave their sects, and should be able to deal with anything that could happen at any time. In this period of time, the situation of the immortal world would definitely be broken, and Su Yun would become even more anxious. Just as he was feeling extremely uneasy, someone from the netherworld came. When Su Yun received the news from Su Luluo, he still did not dare believe it. This time, the person sent by the true devil sect was actually someone they hadn't seen for a long time. With Su Luluo's help, he disguised himself as an immortal and directly snuck into the immortal world gate, entering the immortal seeking sect. Knowing that Octagon Aniseed had arrived, Su Yun was pleasantly surprised, and had been waiting in the meeting hall for a long time. It could be said that Octagon Aniseed looked around the entire way as he entered the immortal seeking sect. His eyes kept wandering around the buildings and disciples on both sides. The disciples of the immortal seeking sect had never seen Chi-Chi before, but when they saw this child dressed in a loose coat with a rather delicate appearance, they all paid attention to him. After all, he was brought into the sect by Su Luluo. "Hey, Miss Su, if you don't want to be the holy maiden of the supreme sect, why are you willing to work for that guy Su Yun? With your talent, you should at least be the leader of a sect." After looking around, Octagon Aniseed nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, his gaze returned to the young girl in front of him and he smiled. "Being the leader of a sect isn't that fun. Furthermore, I'm not working for someone else. Su Yun is Luluo's brother. Can my brother's matter be called working?" Su Luluo said indifferently. "Hee, you sure are open-minded, but I don't think Su Yun will appreciate it." Octagon Aniseed laughed. Although his words were strange, but Su Luluo could hear the clues in it. Octagon Aniseed was reminding her not to try to ease the relationship between Su Shintian, Shin Shueshue and Su Yun. After all, the damage to Su Yun was too great. Su Luluo did not really understand the relationship between Octagon Aniseed and Su Yun, but for Octagon Aniseed to say such words, it was clear that Octagon Aniseed also cared a lot about Su Yun. She did not say a word and arrived at the meeting hall. She said softly, "Big brother is inside, eight-toothed sect leader, you can go in yourself. Luluo still has matters to attend to, so I'll be taking my leave for now." "Miss, please wait." Octagon Aniseed cupped his fists, and then walked inside. After entering the door, his gaze once again began to size up the meeting hall, and his mouth made tisk tsk sounds. "What are you looking at?" Su Yun, who was meditating with his eyes closed in the meeting hall, saw the person who walked in, and immediately asked. However, Octagon Aniseed did not immediately answer him. Instead, he looked left and right, and after a while, he came over with a smirk on his face. Lord Demon Lord, I never thought that you would be getting better and better in the immortal world. Everything here, if placed in the true devil sect, would be a treasure. TSK, amazing! Powerful! Lord Demon Lord, now that you're rich, when are you going to promote me, this poor child? Let me have a taste of the sweetness as well." Octagon Aniseed giggled, but his fair little face looked especially cute. Su Yun glanced at him, and said indifferently, "How is the situation in the underworld? Why don't you ask me how I've been doing recently? Looking at you like this, there's no need to ask. You're really heartless." Octagon Aniseed casually found a chair and sat down. He saw that there was an array formation on the chair, and after activating it, not only would it be able to relax the chi in his body, it would also allow the chi meridian in his body to become more relaxed, and it would also be able to absorb all the impurities in his body, making his body even stronger and more agile. Just by sitting there, Octagon Aniseed was amazed. Alright, since you've come to the immortal seeking sect, you definitely won't be leaving for a while. It won't be too late for you to look at these things in the future. Let's talk about the situation in the underworld first. The Immortal Court army is about to leave. Does the underworld already have a plan to deal with it? Yes. Octagon Aniseed touched the stool under his butt and laughed. There must be a way to deal with it. Demon Lord doesn't have to worry too much, but when I came, I heard Miss Sue talk about some things about the Immortal Court. Demon Lord, are you alright? Nothing serious for now. Although I don't know much about the Immortal Court, as the ruling power of the immortal world, I'm afraid I can't even imagine how terrifying this existence is. For the Demon Lord to not die in the hands of the Vice President, it can be seen that the current you is so strong that I almost can't recognize you. Be serious. Alright, I'll get down to business. Octagon Aniseed smiled, then said, I didn't come here for anything important this time. I just came here to take care of some matters left behind by Elder Yuan Mo, that's all. When he mentioned the word devil, his smile had obviously disappeared. Su Yun was silent for a moment, then closed his eyes. It's obviously not appropriate to leave the matters left behind by the devil cultivator to others. Originally, the sect master planned to have the other elders come over to help you deal with these matters, but after thinking about it, I still think it's more appropriate for me to come over, so I took the initiative to volunteer and rushed over here. Why did you choose to come at this critical juncture? Su Yun opened his eyes and looked at Octagon Aniseed. Octagon Aniseed was stunned for a moment. He took a deep breath, and the expression on his face became incomparably serious. Naturally, I also hope to be able to contact you and help in this immortal underworld battle. Octagon Aniseed shook his head and said indifferently, What do you mean? Su Yun did not understand. However, when Octagon Aniseed spoke again, his voice was extremely heavy. This operation is not aimed at the immortal world, but at the underworld. Octagon Aniseed, if that's the case, you might as well let me rule the Immortal Court. That way there might still be some hope. Rule the Immortal Court? That's even more hopeless. Octagon Aniseed glanced at him, then shook his head. But I'm not asking you to unify the underworld. The difficulty is too great. Let's not talk about whether or not you can subdue those underworld commanders. Just the people of the underworld is a big problem. Then what do you want me to do? Go find the Royal Underworld Sword. Octagon Aniseed's expression suddenly changed as he said with a serious expression. Should I put up a missing person notice? Then you should at least tell me what the Imperial Underworld Sword looks like. Otherwise, I won't be able to hire an artist to draw it. No, you don't have to go out of your way to find it. You only need to challenge one person, and I believe that the Royal Underworld Sword will find you on its own. Challenge a person? Who? The disciple of the Imperial Underworld Sword. Octagon Aniseed crossed his legs, held his head with both hands and laughed. Lord Demon Lord, you are the successor of the limitless sword arts, and have received the true teachings of the sword ancestor. It is said that the Imperial Ming sword has always been unconvinced by the sword ancestor's limitless sword arts, and hopes to spar with the sword ancestor. However, the sword ancestor has been missing for many years, and he has never had the chance to do so. What is it? Does his disciple know the whereabouts of the Imperial Underworld Sword? I should know. Then, why not just let his disciple inform the Imperial Underworld Sword? His disciple won't do it. Octagon Aniseed shrugged his shoulders with a helpless expression. We've sent people over a few times, but his disciple doesn't even want to see us. Because he's the disciple of the Imperial Underworld Sword, we don't dare to provoke him. All right. Su Yun exhaled, thought for a moment, then said, Since that's the case, then I will go once, But I have to say this first: if the Imperial Underworld Sword appears and requests me to inform the Sword Ancestor to duel with him, I will only reject. The Sword Ancestor is currently unable to duel with anyone, and I believe that he will not duel with the Imperial Underworld Sword either. I do not want to cause any trouble for him. If the Imperial Underworld Sword pesters me, then you guys have to help me take care of him. Don't worry, I have already considered this. I will not cause any trouble for the Sword Ancestor. When the Imperial Underworld Sword appears, we will explain the whole story to him. Although the Imperial Underworld Sword loves to fight, he will take responsibility for the Underworld. Since that's the case, then all right, but I still need to rest for a period of time. After all, the matter with the Immortal Court is not easy for me, and I haven't even recovered yet. Su Yun frowned. He was not in a hurry to reply. He stood up and paced around twice, then said indifferently, "First, tell sect leader, let him stay in the underworld for a while longer. If possible, try your best not to go back on your word. The current True Devil realm is not safe. The Immortal Court has already set up a teleportation point to the True Devil realm. The True Devil realm does not have the strength to contend against the Immortal Court, not to mention the entire immortal world. Even if you summon those powerful demons, I'm afraid they will not be able to protect the True Devil realm, and the True Devil realm will never have a day of peace." Octagon Aniseed was startled. "Then Lord Demon Lord, what do you mean? Scatter and hide." "Scatter and hide? Right now, while we are still in the underworld, immediately scatter all the Devil Cultivators, 10 people in a group, 100 people in a group, and scatter all of them. Such a small group of Devil Cultivators will definitely not attract the attention of the people from the Immortal Court, and this way, we can ensure that the Devil Cultivators are not destroyed," Su Yun said in a deep voice. Hearing that, Octagon Aniseed was dumbstruck. After a long while, he said, "If that's the case, wouldn't the True Devil realm become a pile of loose sand? If the Immortal Court really wants to break them one by one, then what should we do? How could it be so easy? The myriad heavens was so huge, and the Devil Cultivator was so scattered. How could the Immortal Court have the energy to deal with them one by one? I believe that the Immortal Court will focus on the True Devil sect, and the other Devil Cultivator will be relatively safe. However, in this way, the pressure on the sect master will become very great. Why would the sect master be afraid of the people from the Immortal Court? Lord Demon Lord, I will discuss this matter with the sect master when I return. If he also thinks that it is possible, then I will do as you say." But if the sect master agrees, then, Octagon Aniseed, you must remember, you must warn those Devil Cultivators to restrain their actions. After they disperse, they must not kill, they must not cause trouble, they must not go against the laws of nature, they must not go against the laws of nature, they must not be evil. The evil of immortals is sometimes worse than the evil of the so-called devils, and the so-called devils will also be better than the immortals. But among the Devil Cultivator, there are indeed some who act recklessly, and it is these people who make others think that all devils are evil. Restrain these people, no matter which realm they go to. They must focus on cultivation, they must not kill, they must not attract the attention of others, and even more so, they must not attract the attention of the Immortal Court. When the time is right, they will gather together and reform the demon realm. All right. Chapter 1208. If what Octagon Aniseed said was correct, then he still had a lot of time. The Immortal Court army had only reached the True Devil realm, and they still needed time to reach the River Styx. Furthermore, crossing the River Styx was also a problem for them, which meant that he had more than 40 days. Su Yun spent 10 days to recover. During this period of time, he used all sorts of top-quality pills and supplementary arrays, and after 10 days, he had more or less recovered. When everything was stable, he explained to Su Luluo, then left the immortal-seeking sect and headed towards the gate of the immortal realm. Since he only needed to find the Imperial Underworld sword to unify the chaotic situation in the Netherworld, he couldn't afford to waste any more time. He needed to find the Imperial Underworld sword's disciple as soon as possible. The situation in the Celestial World was very tense, and the management of the Celestial World Gate was also very strict. The number of guards here had doubled, and there was also the Celestial Faction volunteer army guarding it. Anyone suspicious was not allowed to enter the Celestial World. But fortunately, Su Luluo had arranged for a good magic tool to disguise himself. Using the identity of the Immortal-Seeking sect, the two of them could easily leave the immortal world. According to reliable sources, Imperial Infernal Sword's disciple is currently cultivating in the Fire Heart realm. The Fire Heart realm isn't huge. If we enter it, it will definitely be extremely easy to find him. After leaving the immortal world, Octagon Aniseed directly led Su Yun to the Fire Heart realm, spending less than a day. The moment they entered the Fire Heart realm, the intense high temperature immediately filled their bodies. The heat wave was like a knife cutting their bodies. It was extremely uncomfortable. The temperature here was at least 100,000 degrees. Ordinary immortals would feel extremely uncomfortable entering this place, and it was even more so for Octagon Aniseed. The moment he entered, he almost fell to the ground, his face flushed red, his entire body emitting smoke, and this was because he had prepared ahead of time, wearing some cooling magic treasure, but from the looks of it, the effect was not very obvious. Seeing that, Su Yun placed his hand on his shoulder and activated a bit of immortal qi. The immortal qi immediately covered the surface of his body, protecting him from the intense heat around him. Only then did Octagon Aniseed feel better and look at Su Yun with gratitude. Su Yun did not care and immediately looked around. The Fire Heart realm was completely barren. Not a single blade of grass grew, nor could a single blade of grass grow in the houses. However, the ground would occasionally be filled with potholes, and occasionally, a large number of small hills would rise up. A so-called river could be seen, but it was also a river of magma. The disciple of the Royal Underworld sword should be quite strong. Since I'm challenging him, I should focus on winning. However, I don't have a suitable weapon right now. If I fight him, I'm afraid I'll be at a disadvantage. Su Yun thought, and could not help but look into the sword sheath. Qing Yu had once said that the seal on the ominous sword had loosened, and could not be used anymore, or else it would be difficult to suppress the ominous sword. Especially the Death Sword. The Death Sword was the core sword that sealed the ominous sword, and could not be used as he wished. Otherwise, the seal on the ominous sword would loosen again, and the ominous sword's qi would become even stronger, and that would be troublesome. But not having a proper weapon was also a problem. Su Yun thought about it and took out a few ordinary spirit swords from the sword sheath. He had not reached the state where he had no sword in his hand but a sword in his heart. Naturally, he still needed to rely on external materials to fight. Just as Su Yun was rummaging through the sword sheath, a familiar sword image suddenly appeared in his line of sight. The sword was scurrying around in the sword sheath's world, and coincidentally entered Su Yun's line of sight. He opened his eyes wide and carefully looked at the sword. He looked at it a few times to make sure that he was not mistaken. Isn't this the spiritual sword I bought from the big dog in Wentai City? Su Yun was extremely astonished. He could not believe what he was seeing. Back then, when he was fighting against the vice president of the Immortal Court, he had used his strength to control the sword and pierce through the vice president's chest, using this sword. However, after using this sword, due to the excessive strength, it followed in the footsteps of the Lotus Star sword and directly shattered into pieces and disappeared. Actually, according to the strength of the sword, when he was fighting with the martial god at the peak of the martial god, The force that the Lotus Star Sword endured was far greater than the force that the Spirit Sword endured during the battle in the Immortal Court. However, the strength of the Spirit Sword was clearly inferior to the Lotus Star Sword, which was why it shattered. However, wasn't the sword already damaged? Why was it still intact in the sword sheath? Su Yun was in disbelief. He immediately took out the Spirit Sword and looked at it carefully. "What are you doing?" Seeing that Su Yun had stopped in his tracks, he took out a light purple sword, as if he was looking at a treasure. He held it in his hand and stared at it intently. But Su Yun did not care about him, and continued to look at the sword that did not seem to be outstanding. He extended his hand and covered the body of the sword. He closed his eyes slightly and activated a bit of spirit energy, injecting it into the sword. My rough estimate is that it's at least 10,000 times. 10,000 times! Octagon Aniseed was so scared that his legs almost went limp on the ground. According to this calculation, if he used this sword, his own attack power would already be comparable to a Spirit Profound Immortal Expert. How many levels had he forcefully crossed? Even if it was Su Yun, a 5th stage Spirit Profound God existence, using this sword, his attack power would at least surpass a 6th stage Spirit Profound God. This sword is indeed extraordinary. Su Yun took the sword that Octagon Aniseed handed over and carefully examined it. "Is that guy in the city still selling it? Give me one," Octagon Aniseed hurriedly said. "Do you think there are idiots like that everywhere in the immortal world?" Su Yun rolled his eyes at him. Octagon Aniseed chuckled, then asked, "What's the name of this sword?" "That person doesn't know either. Since it's been transferred to me, I'll just give it a new name." Su Yun looked at it for a while, and suddenly thought of the strange phenomenon just now. In the strange phenomenon, the 2 new moons were especially beautiful, and said, "Let's call it the New Moon Sword." Vulgar. "Then you name it." "Don't, the thing I'm not good at is giving names." "Then don't say any more." Su Yun kept his sword and asked, "Speaking of which, where is the disciple of the Imperial Underworld Sword? How long will it take for us to find him?" According to the intelligence, he should be in the center of the Fire Heart Realm, where the Fire Heart clan live. The Fire Heart Realm's fire of the Fire Heart is the best divine fire for refining magic tools. It is comparable to the 3 true fire. Let's go to the Fire Heart clan to take a look. I guess that person is most likely there. Good. Which direction? Octagon Aniseed scratched his head, looked left and right, and then pointed with his finger. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately grabbed his clothes, leaped up, and flew straight into the air. Su Yun's current cultivation was not something that Octagon Aniseed could compare to. Su Yun was also unable to endure it, but luckily, the flying speed was not considered long. After all, the Fire Heart Realm was not big, and the central region was not far. After spending a little more than an hour, Su Yun saw a gigantic volcano. The mountain was spanning 1,000 miles, the mountain mouth was spewing flames, and on the mountainside there were many gigantic holes that were emitting flames, and outside these holes there were many existences that were completely red, like humans, but outside these holes there were many existences that looked like humans, and if he was not wrong, these existences should be the clansmen of the Flame Heart clan.